Good afternoon. Welcome to the November 27th Social Call Meeting Work Session. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful time with my granddaughters, my grand princesses, I call them. But it's good to be back among the board members where we continue to do great things for this county. So today we have 4 tabs, I believe. And we'll do tabs 1 to 4 today. And then we'll do tabs 5 through 12 tomorrow night. So with that, let's start with tab 1. And I believe that's the Department of Transportation has the floor.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. County Manager. The Department of Transportation has a few work session items that we'd like to present to you this afternoon. And the first one we're going to start with is a company called Adopt a Highway Maintenance Corporation. This company has been around for 27 years. They have a contract with Georgia DOT for the last 10 years, and it's about litter pickup. So Mr. Josh Jensick is going to present to us tonight, and I just wanted to go ahead and introduce him, and then any questions we'll be happy to answer. And then we have Mr. Chris DeGrace with us. He's from Georgia DOT, and he's been the contract manager for Georgia DOT.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Jensick, as Erica described. I've been the Business Development Director for Adopt a Highway for about 17 years. We've been talking with Cobb County, reference our program for a while now. We run a program called Sponsor a Highway. And Sponsor a Highway is a private-public partnership program. And it was one that started about 27 years ago in California as an offshoot of the volunteer program that was started in Texas. For everyone who's not familiar with Adopt a Highway is where community groups agree to sponsor or agree to clean up highway sections. In exchange, they get a sign that recognizes them for doing that work. Sponsor a Highway is an offshoot of that. What happened for us is about 27 years ago, we approached the movie studios in California about helping to keep the roads clean in front of their movie studios. And they didn't have the time or the energy to put people out. So we said, well, what if we brought people and you paid us to do it? And that's kind of how this whole program got built. So the program itself, fully funded from the private sector. There's no county dollars that would be put to this program. We provide all the work for the program. We provide the litter training crews, the marketing of the program, as well as erecting signs and maintaining the signs. My company was started 27 years ago, almost 28. We operate in 23 states right now, including Georgia. All of our programs are currently running. We've picked up hundreds of thousands of miles of litter and hundreds of thousands of pounds of trash. So how does it work? Essentially, we solicit businesses to participate in the program. We go out, we approach local businesses and talk about the value of the program, see if they would be interested in helping to fund it, and then we provide the litter removal services on their behalf with a sign erected with their name on the sign. So we are kind of invisible. We're the middlemen, so to speak. As I just said before, it's completely turnkey. All the county would be required to do is provide approvals. So there are 4 approval processes that we ask the county to participate in. First is the approval of the roadways that will be part of the program. There may be some roads that are sensitive, maybe some roads that are not best suited for this type of program. So the county identifies to us which roadways they would be interested in this program being on. Then they also approve the sponsors. So the county can decide which sponsors they want. Many of our agency partners don't allow things that fall within like the sin categories, gambling, liquor, cigarettes. And then the next approval process is the artwork that goes in the signs. For the most part, this program is kind of designed to have company name and logo. It's not a call to action. There's no advertising. It's not a phone number, Bob's Burgers, best burger in town, nothing like that. And then lastly, we get approval from the county for where the sign goes. So the sign itself is not erected without permission from the county on where the location is. And of course, before any signs are installed, we do utility checks and all the proper channels to make sure that the sign can be placed properly in that location. So that's kind of the county approval side. On our side, we do all the marketing for the program. So we provide all the social media. We do Google AdWords, Facebook ads. We have LinkedIn pages. We do an enormous amount of direct mail pieces where we're providing to the to the businesses within the county about the program itself. We do a ton of phone calls and presentations. We also do all the administrative duties. We collect all the fees, we pay all the insurance components. We have an insurance policy that covers for all sorts of catastrophic incidents. In our history, we've never had any major injuries or fatalities, which is unusual working on the highways. And then all the work is done by our employees, and they're local employees. They're people that are hired here in Georgia. We believe that the best crews are crews that are local. It's your community. They take a better pride of it, and they do a better job. Go ahead. All right, so in a nutshell, benefits the county. It's free litter removal services. The county doesn't pay for this. It's regularly scheduled. So typically in these type of programs, we work with the county to identify a litter schedule. I believe in this program, we're looking at once a month. It's completely paid for by the sponsors and funded completely. We do all the marketing for the program, and we do all the sign installation and repairs. So once these signs are installed, if they get hit by a car or vandalized, we replace them at our cost. It's all covered under our program. And when the sponsors are no longer interested, we also remove the sign as well. Why do sponsors participate? A number of reasons. First one's probably public recognition for their work, helping to keep their community clean. They're hoping it's not completely altruistic, right? They do have a desire. Their hope is that if they show a commitment to the community will reward them with more patronage. It's also about building awareness for themselves. About 70% of our sponsors are small businesses with sales of less than $500,000. So this is an opportunity for a local business to really try to build their name without having to spend the type of money that large corporations do for billboards, television spots, radio spots. And then lastly, a lot of our sponsors, especially because they're so local, just want the community to look better. So they're really interested in actually making that roadway appear better. And many times they're picking roadways that are near their businesses, so this is a way their customers will be coming to their business as a way of trying to keep that local area clean. Just a quick example of what the a potential sign could look like. We do have approval from the Georgia DOT for this type of sign. It's a smaller sign. It's a single post installation, smaller than the signs you see on the highways that exist currently. This should be of a lesser impact because vehicles and people traveling are going to be traveling at a much slower speed. They don't need to have such a large sign. I would say to you that on some of the roads here locally, I think the slower traffic due to the traffic is probably beneficial to the smaller side. So how do we get started? Really, we just need the county's approval. We have all of the resources already in place for the state program. If the county decides they would like to do this program, there's a couple quick steps that we have to do. First step is to identify which roadways would be included within this program. Usually that comes from the agency, determining which ones they feel are the most important. Then we create what's called a segmented inventory. So what we do is we go out to those roadways and we break them into blocks, usually about half a mile to a mile in section. And then we provide an actual drive of those locations to make sure that there's both appropriateness for a sign, meaning this is not an area surrounded by walls or something that wouldn't be appropriate for a litter pickup to be done, but also appropriateness of whether or not a sign makes sense in that area, right? We typically want to put signs where our businesses have interest, but also that is respectful of the area that it's at. The part of this program that we're trying to do is it's supposed to be super positive. We did a study about 10 years ago, and Sponsor, Highway, and Adopt have about a 90% likability score. So it's an important aspect of this program because it's such positive PR that we want people to be involved in the program. We want communities to want us to be there. After that, the county approves the inventory and we begin marketing the program. Since we already have a marketing operations established in Georgia, we can actually get this up and running in less than 60 days. First sponsor probably be in the ground 90 days. This is a slow burn program. This is not a program where you're going to have 100 signs erected in a day. Typically, it's 3 to 4 signs a month. And most of our programs, at least in my experience, I've led most of them, have a 2-year window where they kind of get established, where people get used to the idea, and then they start to grow pretty exponentially, double-digit growth from there. Go ahead. That's my quick nutshell presentation. I'm definitely open for any questions if you have.
Thank you. Keep Cobb Beautiful is a county and nonprofit board that has an Adopt a Mile program that is all volunteers. For HOA groups, anybody can adopt, a business, a residential, or an individual or organization. Have they been in the conversations with you and DOT as far as how that would overlap with this program, or?
Yes, ma'am. We had a conference call with, Mr. Geesey and Keep Cobb Beautiful, and we talked about this. So if we decided to do this program, what we would do is find all the locations that Keep Cobb Beautiful already has adopted out, and we could either tag team this, or we could break out those sections so we don't overlap. I know Keep Cobb Beautiful, it seems like picks up, is it quarterly? So this just may be an enhancement. They pick up, if we pick up monthly, it would just help out with that. But, you know, we wouldn't want to, and not, I don't think encroach is the right word, but I know a lot of these companies or HOAs take pride in what they've been doing, and we wouldn't want to damage that because they've done such a good job in trying to keep the litter and these areas looking very nice. So we could definitely work with that and map that out.
Okay, and then my other question is, this is strictly for picking up litter and trash on the roadways?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You don't mow,
No.
you don't mow too, do you? Because that's what we really need. Because we do have volunteer groups that do picking up litter, although we need more in the areas that, but in the residential areas that need attention, how do you get a business that's a mile or 2 miles away that's not
a great
in that
question.
area? If it's all residential, how do you get them to sponsor the not so attentive areas?
A great question. So typically businesses have 3 different ways that they approach this. One is right in front of my house or in front of my business, right? I want to take care of this one location.
Right.
The other way is the gateways that get to my location. So roadways that maybe are not right in front of me, but approach my business, where I know that my business, my consumers are coming down. And the last place, and this is the place that might affect what you're talking about, is specifically for service companies where they're trying to find where they're actually servicing people's houses. So for example, a lawn company who might be in a residential neighborhood who has 10 lawns but wants to get more might be interested in being on that road that you just talked about because their business, their consumers that they're looking to target are right there. Same thing applies for plumbers, HVAC, real estate agents. We have a ton of local services involved in these type of programs, and they're the ones that look for that specific spot. It's actually exactly what they want. And when we have a discussion with them, we talk about the different options for them, a lot of them move towards that area as a way of trying to get in touch their message to those people right there. And as far, let me just kind of go back a little bit on your volunteer question. Litter's bigger than any one solution. So we don't do anything that's going to displace volunteers. We want to work with the volunteers. We want to support the volunteers. In fact, these type of programs, when we get businesses involved, because of all the marketing we're doing and the reaching out we're doing, we actually get an influx of additional volunteers, which we usually pass on directly to the local agency. So in almost all the programs we are working in, the volunteer program has actually grown because of this participation of this program as well. So there are going to be some businesses who say, I can't sponsor, but I am interested, and let me talk to my group and see if we can volunteer, and they actually come in and join the program that way.
And then what about state roads? Because we get a lot of complaints on state roads that the state's not picking up or mowing or whatever either. So how do you address that? Or would it be just whatever we designate, or could it be a state?
Great question. So on the state agencies, which Chris is coming up for, this program exists right now. So we're trying to expand the program to cover most of the state, but this type of program will never cover every single mile. So what it tends to happen is it's a slow growth. A few people take a few signs on a local state highway, and then more people come and join, and then it starts to build out from there. Sorry.
And I'm Chris DeGrace with Georgia DOT. This is in addition to other services we offer as far as picking up litter. We have our mowing service, and this is in addition. And what is nice about this program is that it's a no cost to us. So we get a 1 month pickup through this program. I'm not promoting this company in particular, but the contract in itself, it is a good program to do. So it's in addition to that. And
Okay.
I understand your concerns about litter. We can send the litter crew out today to pick up on a stretch of highway, and tomorrow it will look like it's never been picked up there too. It's an ongoing problem. So this is something that helps our litter pickup program. We usually, I think this past year, the department spent $14 million statewide to pick up litter. And that this is a free service that's offered. So it's a good program.
So you currently have a contract? With them.
We have contract with our mowers who do 4-time mowing in Cobb County on state right of way. There's a litter pickup there, and then we have an additional 6 litter pickups that are offered during the non-mowing season, which is starting now. And then when you have this program, you've got once a month free to you to pick up.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Coop? Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah, he had his hand up with me.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Burrow asked most of my questions, but is it possible for you to give us an idea what it would cost a small business, or is that something you want to quote?
It ranges significantly because of what the location looks like. So part of our inventory process is to get a feel for what the trash looks like there now, and if there are any trash collection spots. But typically, a few $100s is what the cost looks like here in Georgia right now. It could be a little bit more if it's dirty. It could be a little less if it's less. We sign 2-year agreements with sponsors to do this, so we have to be kind of careful and make sure that we calculate exactly how much trash is there, or we could have a problem later on if it turns out to be dirtier than we expect. So that's part of our process when we do
Is
that.
that per month, or is that total? Is
Per
that
month. It's
200, something like that? Okay. Thank you, that's all.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Does the program allow some level of anonymity for businesses that may not want to be publicized?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If a sponsor chooses not to have a sign, that's totally within their rights. It's very uncommon, but definitely possible.
So you have had that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I could think of a scenario, but prefer not to share that.
It is rare, but yes.
Okay. And-
Also, I'd like to mention that we have shared our specifications and our contract with Cobb County. We're glad to. We've been in this program now for 6 years, I believe, and feel that it is a value to the community, and we are willing to share our experience with you on that. And help to if you decide to do your own program. Also, you mentioned state routes, that would fall under our jurisdiction, but we could work together with
Good.
you on molding this project for both Cobb and County and possibly Marietta, I believe we talked to.
Okay, thank you. Just another question too about the contributions of businesses. Are they pooled together so that multiple business can be servicing one area, or do you find just one business just takes on a particular area?
Yeah, we typically have one business per one section is what we typically try to do.
Okay,
A lot of the sponsors want to ensure their sort of exclusivity to providing that service so that they get the recognition for it. So they're not really wanting to share that in most experience.
okay,
And the surprise we had that this was new territory for us. It took us 10 years to get Federal Highway Administration approval. We just assumed that we would have Coca-Cola, and Home Depot, and big Delta, big companies. But we found through this 6-year experience, it's really local companies that are wanting to do this. They want to get the advertisement through their logo on the roadside of that. That was the big hurdle that we had with the Federal Highway Administration, was getting on state and federal highways, getting a logo out there instead of a name like we do on the Adopt a Highway or sponsor, local sponsor a road program. But that was one of the surprises we found. It's really the local companies that want to participate. So I think that this would be a good fit for Cobb County, for your local roads. And as I said, we'll be glad to work with you and share our experience with you.
Okay. And one final question. As this program rolls out, how do you prioritize certain areas? Do you try to shoot for main corridors first? Do you just put a blanket call out throughout the county? How does that work?
So, good question. So it depends, as an answer, I'm sorry to say. So we do 2 folds. One fold is an initial announcement. We tell all the businesses within the county that this program is coming. So the first shot is who's just interested in that component. And then our sales group works by corridor. So we do identify corridor, usually with the county's feedback. So the county might say,
Okay.
hey, these 3 roads are our top priority. Can you
Okay.
focus on these? And we'll start there.
Okay.
One of the things with this type of program is, in reference to the state routes that are nearby, this program will have spillover. When we do all of this marketing, there are going to be people who before had said, you know what, I'm not interested in participating on the state route. They're going to say, I want to take this local county route, and then I want to take a sign on the state route. So there will be a spillover. We've seen that before with other programs as well.
Okay. Do you take medians with roads?
Oh, right now we just do those shoulders of the roads.
Okay.
But to answer questions about mowing and other things, if the demand is there, we will definitely try to bring it back and say, hey, we've got an interest from some parties that say they want to mow, and if we can make that work, we'll do it.
Okay.
Our company, in our 27 years, we're in 23 states. All 23 states have different programs. They're all different based on the needs of that organization. So if somebody, a good example is New York. New York has a real problem with graffiti. Graffiti became an offshoot of this program. There's a graffiti program as well. So
Interesting.
we'll go where the demand goes, and if we can find people to do it, we'll bring it to the county and say, are you interested? And if they are, we can move forward from there.
Excellent. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we started this discussion at DOT, it was actually about the medians. Because the board had discussions at the retreat and before that, 2 of the districts had a contract and 2 were done by the county. And so when I met with DOT, we talked about trying to adopt medians. And so I would kind of view this as the first step, because this is what these folks do. But as you just heard, it could very easily morph into doing the medians. But that was actually, Commissioner Cupid, where the discussion started, was to try to help take care of the medians. So this is kind of who we found in the discussions.
Commissioner Ott, to follow up on that, also Erica and Jim have actually put together a first draft of the Adopt a Median policy. Have done a real good job with that. And that's going to be something that we hope to bring back to the board for further consideration in 2018, sir.
Okay, good job. I'm sure we'll see something on the agenda item real soon. Hint, hint. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. It's a great brief. All right, next we have application of synthetic turf to traffic medians. Is that you also, Erica?
Yes, sir, it is. So if I could introduce Ms. Laura Everett. She is with ProGreen Synthetic Turf, and she's going to be talking to us today about synthetic turf in applications such as medians.
Yes.
Do you want to see this slide?
Sure.
Perfect. So this is the product. It's one. Perfect. That is our K9 Deluxe product is what it's called, but it has a shorter length, fiber length to make it look kind of freshly mowed, which is really nice and really pleasing. But even I go a little bit more into detail about the product a little later, but it has our ProFlow backing, which is non-perforated, and it drains really, really well. And that's what was our number one objective with that one. Okay, so why would we put artificial grass in the medians? The number one reason is safety. Since artificial grass is low maintenance, almost no maintenance, but very, very low maintenance, it reduces the number of employees that are put in a hazardous work zone on a busy, busy street. And that alone is a big reason why many, many municipalities across the country, and even internationally, we've done some work in Canada, are putting medians in their roads. Next benefit, of course, is it's low maintenance. So as such of that, you reduce maintenance costs, you reduce equipment costs, you reduce irrigation costs, you save water. And then, of course, it's aesthetically pleasing. It'll be green all year long, look beautiful no matter the weather, no matter the climate, no matter too much rain, too little rain, it will still be beautiful all year. So one of the projects that we recently did last year was the medians in Chino, California. And one of the things that started it was they had a fatality from a landscaper who was working in the medians. So one was unfortunately was killed and the other was very injured. And that's what prompted them to start looking into artificial grass. And the picture on the right is our artificial turf in the median. And so we want to start with 2 test sites. The first one is this very, very long, narrow strip of median on Cumberland Parkway. It's almost half a mile long, but it's only about 2 or 3 feet wide. As the maintenance costs are huge because they have to use a hand mower, everything. And it's much more dangerous because the median is so narrow. So this really is a perfect application for artificial grass because as there are no trees, there is no, I mean, it will be virtually no maintenance because no one will be walking on it. There will be no leaves or any debris falling on it. Just one-time installation and it'll basically be done. The second test site is this median here off Austell Road near Cobb Hospital. And it would be a little bit more maintenance, as if there are any trees or leaves that fall on it, you would have to brush those off or pick them up occasionally. And then if anyone's crossing the street and walking on it, it could then require an occasional brushing to make the fibers stand up and continue to look nice. So this is a cost analysis based on I found a news article that said 2 landscaping sites in Cobb County had a annual maintenance cost of about $50,000 a year. And so I used that as the basis for this. As for the cost of installing the turf in these 2 median sites. And so we would break even at year 3, and then every subsequent year, we would just be saving 50 grand. Our artificial turf lasts on average 20 to 25 years. And so here is the product that we are looking to put into the turf. It's our K9 Deluxe. It's not used just for canine applications. That's just the name of it. It has the short, freshly mowed look, and it has the ProFlow backing that drains right through. That's actually a video. And so you can see the water goes right through it, even though it's not perforated. And it drains at a better rate than natural grass and any other synthetic turf products. And these are a few pictures of projects that we've done so that you can see it looks really good and it looks natural. As people are driving by or walking by or passing by, they would never be able to look at it until it's fake or synthetic. Not until it's January and there's a bright green median, and then they would say, that doesn't look right. But it will still look beautiful. It just won't look natural. But, okay. So.
Does anybody have any
Questions?
questions? Comments? Commissioner Rutherford?
Sure. I assume it's so much per square foot or something to install?
Yes.
Is
So
that,
the full turnkey installation is $8.50 a square foot, not including the traffic control, but in our proposal, we did get a price for traffic control and added that in addition.
what was the last thing you said? Traffic?
Traffic control, so for lane closures during the installation
okay.
process and stuff like that.
And I assume you guys are a local company?
We are headquartered right across from SunTrust Park in the Battery off of Circle 75 Parkway. We have 2 manufacturing plants, one in Dadeville, Alabama, and one in Chatsworth, Georgia. So our products are 100% made in America, right here at our own facilities.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burrow and Commissioner Ott?
Hi, Laura. Where is the closest, is the Chino, California, the
Closest that
closest?
we've done median.
Where we
No.
could see what it actually looks like on the ground?
We've not done any medians in Georgia. We have done a lot of installations here, though. So the dog park at Atlantic Station, that's one of our installations. We've done another dog park in Alpharetta. We just did the Free Chapel Church in Gainesville, their amphitheater. And yes, so there are, I could give you a list of in places if you would like to go and see it. It would be a little different than this application, just because like for the dog park, it's a lot more traffic than the medians would. So it might look a little bit more worn, but it still should look fabulous.
Okay.
And then,
We have a dog park too, Eddie Cannon and Jimmy Geesey. Test site 3.
We do a lot of dog parks and kennels and daycare facilities. It's just very, very easy and low maintenance for the dogs.
Commissioner Ott?
One of the things that, for the commissioners, one of the things we talked about moving forward in these test applications, you have to go in and you have to pay for the traffic control and all that, but one of the things that the county could do is with SPOS projects moving forward, if you do it as part of the SPOS project, then you don't have the traffic control. It would all be part of instead of doing the medians and the pressed concrete that we do now, it could just be part of a SPOS project as you do road improvements.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Sorry.
It could, no, it would be part of the overall SPOS project. If you're doing an intersection improvement that has new medians or reconfigured medians, then instead of putting the pressed concrete, you would just put the artificial turf.
Okay, for future, yeah.
Yeah, projects that are ongoing.
Okay, and follow up to that, can you talk a little bit about utilizing this in our concrete areas versus areas that already have sod? Would that be an initiative of or consideration of the county?
Absolutely. We could remove the concrete and put turf down.
Well, one of the things, Commissioner Cupid, because we just had this discussion over on some of the medians that were going to be replaced as part of the East Cobb pipeline. A lot of it depends on, is the median on top of the old road so that the asphalt's down there, or is it just dirt? Because if it's got asphalt, that has to be taken up also. So sometimes it's not possible unless you're redoing the median.
Okay,
But if it's just concrete over dirt, then you can come in and take out the concrete and then put the stuff that they have to have underneath.
We could install it on asphalt.
Okay, that's what they told me.
okay, interesting. Also, you have some pictures with pets on there, and I was just curious to know, because of pet waste, how that works. Does it permeate?
It does.
Does it similarly? Okay.
So yes, of course, urine would flow right through, and fecal matter would have to be picked up, or if it just drained through and stuff, that would be fine too. But usually we recommend that they pick it up.
Okay. And you said it was low maintenance, not necessarily no maintenance.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about what the frequency of that would be? I heard you refer to brushing the material every now and then?
Yes.
Okay.
So low maintenance. The number one thing that you would want to do is just pick up any debris that falls on there. So leaves or sticks or whatever that might be. And then as far as brushing, we usually recommend once a year, although in the low traffic situations like this, it could probably be pushed to 18 months or even every 2 years.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, those are all my questions. Anyone have any? Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Our next presentation will be from Planning of Cobb Transportation to present information regarding Cobb County Greenways and Trails Master Plan.
Okay, good. All right, good afternoon, Commissioners, County Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to brief you this afternoon on the Cobb County Greenways and Trails Master Plan. So today's presentation will start with an overview of the existing system and the planning context. Then we'll talk a little bit about community engagement, what we're working on today, and then what the future might look like. Existing trails. Cobb County has a lot to be proud of. In the 10-county area, Cobb County has over a quarter of the region's regionally important trails. So in the trail sphere, we're winning, and our residents definitely want us to widen our lead. For the city and the county, we have over 80 miles of shared use paths and greenways, which the big names there, of course, are Silver Comet, Noonday, Kennesaw Mountain, and so forth. In Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield and Chattahoochee National Recreation Area, you've got around 50 miles there. And then in our city and county parks, you've got another 47 miles of recreational trails. So we have plenty of great trails here in Cobb County to be proud of. I'm not going to walk all the way through this slide, but there's a lot of context for working on this Greenways plan. We worked with all 6 cities, the 3 CIDs, Georgia Department of Transportation, and the Atlanta Regional Commission. And we coordinated with the Parks Department, who's working on their master plan right now as well. Vision and goals. Every good plan's got them. So our vision statement is Cobb County is a leader among metro Atlanta counties in providing a safe, well-connected network of greenways and trails for active transportation to improve accessibility, economic competitiveness, and health for residents and visitors. And then you see the goals, standard fare, connectivity, accessibility, safety, health, natural environment. So these are the goals and vision that have shaped the draft plan that we're talking about this afternoon. Community engagement. We did things a little differently this time, and something that we're now going to be doing for all of our future trails. We, instead of hosting a public meeting and hoping that folks come to our meeting here or at a usual location, we went out to where people were. We went to Taste of Marietta, Taste of East Cobb, Mableton Day, Smoke on the Lake Barbecue Festival up in Ackworth. We talked to over 440 people at those events. We asked them what trails they use, where they'd like to see new ones. How do they get out and about on the trails? Are they walking? Are they running? Are they roller skating? Is it primarily fitness? Long story short, and this should have been obvious to me, I'm a dog walker too, but we have a lot of people walking dogs in Cobb County, plenty. We also did some survey work. We had an online survey, and also we went to trailheads at different trail locations around the county, from Powder Springs all the way up to the town center area, and did what we call intercept surveys with trail users. So let's get to know our customer, and we talked to a total of 380 people with those surveys. And of course, meetings. Plenty of meetings, but probably more than anything, our consultants at Gresham Smith and Alta talked to a lot of people on the phone, a lot of file sharing, a lot of emails. And finally, the website. We had a survey on there, some other background information. It's not as easy to see on this map, but you'll see sort of some light lavender colors up there on the map. We let folks draw their trail ideas on the map, and boy did they. They logged over 330 miles of suggestions. So that was kind of cool. Gresham Smith and Alta did a great job with that, and people definitely took advantage of not having to describe over the phone what their trail idea was. They got to draw it straight onto a map. All right, so I'm going to get into what's in the future. We talked a little bit about how we already are a leader in trails regionally, but how are we widening our lead? So I'm going to group together a few projects and hit some highlights. So these three projects, numbers 6, 7, and 8, would finish and reinforce a 26-mile north-south spine formed by the Mountain to River Trail, Silver Comet Cumberland Connector Trail, and the Noonday Creek Trail. So together, you'd be able to go from Woodstock through Town Center to Kennesaw Mountain Battlefield, downtown Marietta, city of Smyrna downtown, Cumberland, and finally the Chattahoochee River. It'd be quite a nice little marathon route from the river all the way up to Woodstock. And so what we've got going on there is Noonday Creek. That piece up there, number 6, is in design. Cherokee County and Woodstock are the lead on that. You've got the West Atlanta Street Trail. We applied for funding there, and the Atlanta Road Trail. We hope to go to construction on that in 2018. Number 9, the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park. So those are 3 trails all together in sort of one project for us. That's being done in cooperation with the National Park Service, City of Marietta. Altogether, that's around, what have we got? Yep, I'm missing my mileage here. So it's 10-foot multi-use trails that will complement the existing 20 miles of existing trails in the Kennesaw Mountain Battlefield area. To date, this project has been so popular with some of the granting agencies, we've attracted close to $7 million in federal funds for these 3 trails. And finally, we're not going to hit all these bullets, I promise, is numbers 16, 17, and 18. There you're trying to connect the Silver Comet Trail down to the Chattahoochee River through Mableton. This is an important project locally because you also have transit service there that could benefit from this multimodal approach, and regionally. It connects then possibly over to the City of Atlanta and then southward towards Sweetwater Creek Park down in Douglas. So currently a trail segment along Floyd Road is under construction and will connect to the existing trail on Floyd Road that runs just to the south side of the Veterans Memorial Highway intersection. And from there, we've got that rest of that on Mableton Parkway programmed. And likewise, there on the Chattahoochee River, we have a 3-mile stretch from Mableton Parkway up to I-285. We have applied to the Atlanta Regional Commission for grants on those as well and hope to hear some good news this week. So we're making progress. Draft trail plan. So this is sort of a new summary map of what's existing, what's under construction, what's programmed, and what's proposed. This is definitely a long-range sort of proposed map. This is not next year, this is not 10 years, this is probably 2040 or beyond. But if we were to achieve this, today you have about 42% of the county's population that could get to a trail pretty easily. If we were to achieve this, you'd have 87% of the county's population having easy access to a trail. Today, 76% of employment is near a trail. It would grow up to 92% in the future. Today, 78% of our parks are near a trail. This would go up to 92%. So we're trying to provide easier and easier access to folks. Priority trails. So these are the suggestions. We hope to put out a draft plan on the web this December and let you, the citizens, some of our stakeholders in the cities, CIDs, and otherwise look it over. These are the trails that we're proposing might sort of be part of our next decade of big connections. So what we're talking about here is Chattahoochee River. We already own a good bit of the right-of-way down there on our side. So this would follow the river from Mableton Parkway, roughly 3 miles to I-285, sorry, which traverse through the new Riverview Landing development there in Smyrna, which they've already agreed to provide waterfront access for 12 acres there along the river. When the trail approaches I-285, from there we'd hand it over to City of Atlanta. We'd connect over through a bridge over to their Proctor Creek Trail that they're working on from City of Atlanta. And that would also get you then some trails that they're looking to build north up to Peachtree Creek, which is near Atlanta Road. So all told, we would build possibly 3. They would build 3. You have a 6-mile trail along Chattahoochee River for this stretch of the county. Connect the Comet. So this one has been a grassroots effort for over a decade with people advocating for completing the missing 6.5-mile link from the eastern terminus of the Silver Comet Trail near the east-west connector to the Atlanta Beltline. Earlier this year, 4,000 signatures were delivered to Governor Deal about this issue. The Cobb segment is roughly 3.4 miles from east-west connector to the Chattahoochee River, and this is mostly in unused right-of-way with the CSX. So That's a fairly recent picture. We're hoping that as part of the State Properties Commission negotiations with CSX, that the state of Georgia could possibly receive this property in the near future. Rottenwood Creek, that's a Marietta project that we've worked with them on over the years. They're trying to get there from, it's a 3.3-mile segment from Alumni Drive at the sports complex, then goes along Barclay Circle to Cobb Parkway, and then Rottenwood Creek over to Franklin Gateway near the new Atlanta United soccer training camp. And then ultimately, that Rottenwood Creek Trail would make it across 75 or under 75, depending on which way they go, and then connect downwards to Bob Callan Trail. So piece by piece. Austell Powder Springs Road. So this is a roughly 4-mile trail from Joe Jerkins Boulevard in Austell to the Silver Comet Trail, likely with a small jog there. This would be the first real transportation-oriented trail for the city of Austell and would provide them an important connection to the Silver Comet Trail. It's part of their updated comprehensive plan that they just did in 2017. So they're pretty excited about this component. Okay, near the end there, Allatoona Creek Greenway. This is up in District 1. So this is part of a longer proposed trail stretching from Dallas Highway to Lake Ackworth along Allatoona Creek and Mars Hill and some other possible road alignments. This segment is roughly about 5 miles from Harrison High School on due west and also Allatoona Creek Park up to there where you've got the mountain bike trails. So what makes this exciting is we already have a good bit of land, whether it's Price Park, the Kemp property, which was a recent acquisition, and then other opportunities. So we think working with the Parks Department that this one could move sooner rather than later with some creative thinking. And last but not least, two more actually, Noonday Creek Trail. We talked about this a little bit. This gets you from Town Center up to Woodstock. So an important connection in District 3. It's a 3.7-mile trail extension on Noonday Creek. And this is the last one. Nickajack Creek, this goes from the Chattahoochee River, keeps where you have the Shoepades and other Civil War earthworks, 3.67 miles. Oops, where am I? So this has been in the county's comprehensive plan since 1998. It connects 3 parks, the Johnson River Line, Henderson property, and the Nickajack Park. So those are priorities for your consideration. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and I will take questions, and the consultants are here as well.
Eric, on that draft trail plan slide, you gave some statistics about 42% right now can use the trails to get to work, but that number would go up if we completed the plan. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So give me those numbers again.
So today, roughly 42% of the population lives proximate to a trail. It would go up to 87%
Okay.
if we got all of this done. This is a lot to get done.
And did you also have one connected, like you were mentioning something about connected to businesses or?
Today, 76% of our businesses or employees are proximate to a trail, and it would go up to 92% with the completion of this network.
Okay.
So if you're looking to go for a run or your neighbors are, suggest that they look about where they work, because it's likely they work near a trail. Tell them to bring a bag with them.
But we don't know, 76% of employees are proximate to a trail, but it's not necessary to their business.
So we looked at where employees were in the county,
Yeah.
and then how close those employees were to a trail. I'm not sure if I'm following your question.
So can they get from their home to work and back on a trail?
Oh, that's a whole different.
Okay, that's what I was saying, you're right. Okay.
Right.
All right. And we talked about this last week. I just want to emphasize it to the board members here, that we've applied funding for the Atlanta Road section of the trail. There you go, West Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, so once we complete that, then we'll be able to go at least from Town Center down to the Silver Comet, and then east and west on the East Silver Comet across the county, right?
Correct.
And who are we applying funding from for that?
The Atlanta Regional Commission.
Okay, and when will they make that decision?
We had hoped they would announce it prior to Thanksgiving. Now I'm told it might be this week or the next week.
Okay, all right. No, keep me informed on that, would you? Because that'd be a remarkable feat. You can go north and south, east and west in this county.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of bike riding.
Yeah, with just those connections there from Town Center down to Cumberland's about 20 miles.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Eric, the cobbtrailplan.com, is that the website most people go to find what we have now, or is there another one?
So that's the website for the planning process. Otherwise,
Right.
they would just go to, once this is done, we'll put all those documents on the DOT website.
Don't we have a separate website just for trails?
For this planning process, we
Not
just,
just for the planning, I mean, if I want to go and find where the trails are in Cobb County, right?
I don't think there is a dedicated trail-only website. Travel and Tourism has talked about having a Greenways initiative.
For some reason, I thought there
It's not a
was.
separate website. There's a story map on both the DOT website and DOT page and GIS that shows you where every trail in Cobb County is. You can click on it, find out how long it is, what the surface is. Is there parking? Are there restrooms?
And they go to the DOT website?
Yep.
Hey, I just want everybody to know how to get to it other than just what we have in the future.
Or they can go to the GIS page.
Or GIS. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, in some municipalities, I've seen bike share programs near these type of amenities. Is this a consideration for us here in Cobb?
So right now you have Town Center has a bike share program, Smyrna has a bike share program. Cumberland and Marietta are also, I guess, on the edge of having a bike share program.
Cumberland
Yeah,
is-
Cumberland, with the issue is, what they told us last CID meeting is, getting the locations to put the bikes. Because they have to get, they have to go on private property. Or at least that's what they're looking
You're
at
correct.
right now.
Cumberland is looking at it. City of Marietta is looking at it. Kennesaw State is also looking at it. But the hope is that they would all form under the same umbrella of
Yes.
Zaxter, so that then you could pick up a bike in Town Center, ride it to Smyrna and drop it off,
Yes.
and go likewise. But they're looking at that program. Right now, it's only Town Center and Smyrna, but everybody else is looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Great job.
Thank you very
Very
much.
exciting.
It is.
I believe Destiny, it's your chance to excel.
All right, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. Following a competitive bid process on July 11th, 2017, the Board of Commissioners approved the selection of Mission Critical Partners Incorporated to conduct a comprehensive needs analysis and development of a 5-year strategic plan to focus on current and future personnel, facility, and technology needs. That study has concluded, and I have representation from Mission Critical Inc. today to make those presentations, followed by a opportunity for the board to ask questions, and we'll start with Mike Milas.
Thank you. Top one forward. Right on. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Director Davidson, for this opportunity to present some of the findings to the board. We're going to try to be brief and focused today in respect of your busy agenda. As I'm sure you all have an appreciation, the 911 centers of the world today are often not very visible to the public, but just are an essential gateway to public safety services for the safety of the public and the safety of the public safety responders once they're out there. They're very complicated organizations with a tremendous amount of technology. Cobb County has been very forward-thinking and trying to look at a strategic plan to prioritize activities and make wise investments moving forward, and we're here to talk to the board about that, recommendations from that study. So we'll talk very briefly about those goals and objectives, the different things that we looked at, and then focus in on some of the recommendations. We actually had 38 key recommendations. We're only going to focus on a few today, as a lot of them are internal things that they can do within the organization. And so prioritizing how you chew the elephant of trying to do everything that needs to be done in a 911 center is what we looked at. How do you address the environmental factors, the different changing dynamics, the growth in the county, the growth in call volume, the changes to the technology, and understanding how they impact the people, because the people within that center, the employees, are really your biggest asset and the most important piece of the center. All the other things are tools for them to help them do their job. So we looked carefully at operations and staffing. We looked at the network infrastructure and the connectivity. We looked at today's 911 technologies and the future technologies. You might have heard of next gen, things like texting to 911, two-way texting, things like that are next gen sort of concepts. We looked at the radio system. You're probably aware that part of one of your current SPLOST projects is to enhance the radio system. That's underway. We looked at the facilities and security, and the focus of both the facilities and the security look were more on how do they impact operations, how do they impact the employees, how do they serve to accomplish the mission of the organization. So the current service provision levels within the organization are very strong. You might be aware of the fact that they have over 15 years of CALIA accreditation as a 911 center. That's a national organization, sets standards for law enforcement agencies, for 911 centers, and they've been very diligent about maintaining those services, those policies, those procedures that allow them to retain that accreditation. So overall, our view, and we have the opportunity to look at a lot of these organizations around the country, was very positive. They're doing a very good job. Now, they have a lot of challenges, and we'll talk a little bit about a few of those. I would say they're stretched thin, and they are doing the best with what they have, but they're almost at a point where some of the personnel issues and some of the facility issues are going to start to hamper their ability to provide the high level of service that the citizens of Cobb County have become accustomed to. So the fact that they did a strategic plan, we find very proactive and forward-thinking. A lot of organizations talk about it, and it's one of those things you never get to. And so having a plan really helps you prioritize your needs, and it's something that's a living document or a living exercise that I know they intend to revisit on an annual basis. So with me today, I have two of my colleagues. I have Rick Harrison and Louisa Lake, and I'll ask each of them to come up briefly on some of the focus areas of personnel and facilities. My background is in law enforcement, and I was previously an elected county sheriff. Both Rick and Louisa are also former public safety practitioners who worked in large 911 centers. So I feel we have some good practical experience that we could help apply to the way y'all are doing things here in Cobb County. So Louisa, if you can come up here and join me. On the personnel level, Louisa's going to talk about some specific recommendations, but essentially you're both short-staffed, meaning there are current positions that are underfilled in the process of being filled, and you're understaffed, meaning you really should have some additional positions added to the TO&E structure to keep up with your current needs and future anticipated things such as the 6th Police Precinct, dividing the way fire is organized within the center as far as being able to better accommodate multiple incidents at one time. And so we looked at current needs and we tried to look into the future at where's the county going and what's anticipated, what's on the radar, and we looked at all of those things. Right now you have a situation where everybody's pitching in to get the job done. And as you might imagine in a 911 center, the most important thing is answering that 911 call. That's the gateway, that's the entry activity. And so today you have supervisors and you have people who are in specialty functions like quality control and training who are pitching in and answering the phone when the phone needs to be answered. You have somebody who might be on a radio console in a radio position handling a police precinct who, when the 911 calls are coming in and there's a lull in the action, will answer that call so that those people aren't in a queue for any longer than they need to be. But when people do that, we're all humans, their focus can only be on one thing at a time. If you're on a radio console and your focus is intended to be on that radio traffic, now you're on a 911 call, baby choking, something like that, your focus has shifted, and you're putting yourself a little bit at risk of which one could be more important going back and forth. This is no fault to the organization. They're pitching in and trying to get things done, but when you're short-staffed and short-handed, those are the types of circumstances that come up, and it is on a fairly regular basis. It's not just occasionally. When we were there, we noticed that supervisors, for example, were regularly answering 911 calls. Well, then they're not doing their supervisory duties while they're doing that. So Louisa has some specific recommendations that she'll walk through a little bit. Again, the focus today is on things that the board, we think, has a keen interest in, or where there may be some board action needed to implement, such as additional staffing. Louisa.
Good afternoon. Currently, the authorized strength of the 911 center is 128, and that includes the 3 upper management positions, what we would call support positions, such as in training, quality assurance, recruiters, and 113 that actually are assigned to work in the 911 center as call takers, dispatchers, and supervisors. Our first recommendation right now is to increase the telecommunicator strength by 9. Currently, as Mike said, they are short-staffed. When we started the process, they had 19 vacancies. They are now down to 9 vacancies. They have 10 or 11 in training at the moment. We look at when looking at staffing, we're using best practices from industry associations such as the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, APCO, or the National Emergency Number Association, NENA, as well as Erlang C calculations. And that indicated that based on the current statistics that the center has with their call volume, which over the last 5 years has increased just 911 calls by over 5%, whereas your population has increased over 8% during the same time frame. So we're seeing an increase there. It indicates that the center is understaffed as well, meaning their authorized strength needs to be increased. So that is our first recommendation, is to increase that by 9 and begin to hopefully reduce the attrition rate. Over a 3-year period from 2014 to 2016, the center experienced an attrition rate of about 26%. And a lot of that is new hires that are coming in that realize once they get accepted for a position that it may not be for them, they can't handle the stress level and things of that nature. NENA has indicated that approximately 25% of new hires do not complete the training process, which can run anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 months, depending on the center. So our concurrent recommendation is a one-time overhire of 7 additional telecommunicators that will hopefully help fill that void for the 25% that's anticipated to be lost. And that's not an increase in authorized strength. That's just a one-time overhire to hopefully fill that gap. Another part of an integral part is quality assurance and quality improvement. And that is an industry standard and a best practice. And what that does is it's a program that is set up to review the incoming calls, the dispatches, things of that nature, to ensure that the citizens are getting the best service possible. Right now, Cobb County 911 has 1 person that does that, and the supervisors assist in that as well. Based on standards that have been established, there should be 3 to 4 people doing that, taking on that task and role. So we're recommending an increase of 3 for those positions. Because of that increase in position there and the numerous activities that training currently is doing, including trying to become a regional training center and applying for APCO 33 training certification, it's important to have a supervisor that oversees those and not reporting directly to one of the deputy directors. So that's another recommendation. So we're recommending increasing your authorized strength from 128 to 141, so increasing it by 13 people. And we're also recommending that someone be trained to assist the 911 recruiters, because obviously with a vacancy currently of 9, and we're recommending another 16 be hired, they're going to need some assistance. The hope would be that it can just be someone that fills in part-time and is not a full-time need. And the last is to cross-train someone to assist with the computer-aided dispatch and the geographic information system position that will create some redundancy. With next generation 911, text to 911, getting videos, perhaps streaming from a scene, GIS is going to be especially important for the location, and there's no redundancy in that position at the moment.
Thank you, Louisa. Rick? So we looked at facilities, again, with a mindset of how are the facilities supporting the operation? How are the facilities supporting the personnel? And I'll let Rick talk about some of those details.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My charge here in this was to look at the facilities and technology, but facilities, I looked at the security side of it and also the facility amenities and what the Cobb County 911 is dealing with. When I looked at the facilities for the security side of it, I noticed that there wasn't much other than door access, which is, in this day and age, as you know, that can be problematic. It is an open campus there. It is a police station. It's headquarters with 911 in it, but the fact remains that it is an open campus with multiple access points. There is no fencing. There is no setback that is in industry standards. It's too close to a roadway. There is glass in the 911 center from floor to ceiling that is not ballistic. And in looking out those windows, there is a direct shot of anybody that wants to go about a block over and just sit in a parking lot if they would want to do that. The industry standard in a 911 center is ballistic glass. If you're going to have windows, usually windows are up high so that you don't have to worry about, your body in the range of a window. It is nice to have light come into a 911 center, but to have it the way it is in that center is a danger in this day and age. Like I said, it is an open campus design. There is no fencing, no gating, no ballards, nothing to stop anybody from driving into the parking lot and just driving up to the building, to be quite honest, as close as they could get. Our recommendation would be to secure that if possible, if you want to go that way. Early in 2016, you did have a security study done for that facility, and I believe we aligned with that pretty well. We did not know about that study until after we were done, and after reading it, we aligned fairly well with what they suggested too. As far as the 911 center inside, there really is no remaining expansion space for them. They take up the area that they have with offices and the 911 center and their equipment rooms. So any growth, and Cobb County is growing, and any growth up there, they are limited in office space, limited in training and conference space area up on the floor itself. So that can be problematic for the management and trying to have meetings and to get together with staff. I mean, there is a small conference room there, but any large shift meeting that you want to have or any large meeting would have to be taken downstairs. The other issue is there's insufficient break and kitchen areas in the facility. Quite honestly, they're eating at their console and they're cooking in the 911 center in microwaves, which is, for a high stress level job that 911 is. The employees, as Mike mentioned, are your best asset, and not to let them get away from the console and go sit down for a lunch break for a half an hour is something that is pretty industry standard anymore. They need that time away from that board. Answering call after call of people's worst day is pretty stressful. I did it for 37 years, and I know what toll it takes on you. So just to get them away, I will give props to Director Davidson. They do have a quiet room there, and a quiet room is something that is starting to become a room that dispatchers go to, and they have some quiet time after taking a rough call. Let's say they took a bad CPR call or something, and they need some time away. They do have a quiet room at Cobb County 911, and that's great to see. I'm glad to see that, and it's something they should be proud of. And again, they have insufficient locker and changing room space. Actually, the lockers are in the communications center in the 911 room. So, you know, coming in, you know, and having to slam locker doors and put all your stuff in there, you know, most places have a little bit of a set aside where they have an area for that for them, for a little bit of changing room. So our recommendation at the bottom is to really undertake a full facility assessment. We did a cursory look at this, but you know, do you put money into renovations? Your previous, the study previously, I believe, just for the security side was $3 million. I believe I read in that study just to get that area up to spec. So you do a renovation of the current facility. Is there you know, is the police department headquarters going to move? Do you include 911 in that move and allow them a space in that facility that is of size that they need? Or is there viability to say, build a new 911 facility? I will add, we also talked to the IT department. I know they're stretched thin, and IT and 911 are starting to work more hand in hand, and that's certainly something that could be looked at as a viability of a 911 IT type complex too. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, so for temporary setback measures, what could they be taking right now?
Industry standards, 82 feet setback from any type of roadway. That is, right now, that you're looking at, they're about, you know, 30 to 35 feet. Really, there is no setback there, Commissioner, because there is really no curbing per se off the, anybody could just drive over the curbing there and run right into the building if they, you know, want to. So that is, 82 feet is usually the setback requirement off the road. You know, but my biggest concern there was, you know, there's no fencing, there's no ballards, there's nothing stopping anybody coming in the back front. You to monitor all the accesses there is pretty rough. To close, I know it's an open campus and you like to keep it open because it's PD headquarters, but you know, to keep it open like that, I mean, the midnight shift at 911, you know, if they want to go out and get some fresh air, they go outside. They really don't know who's lurking about the building, you know, in and around the area. It's an open campus. So, you know, you know, just to keep people from coming in and out, you know, there should be access gates. And most places, I will tell you, most places have access gates, key cards for their employees, and you know, they get into the parking area through access.
All right, so for setback outside the building, could they use stuff like Texas or Jersey barriers as a temporary measure?
You can use ballards or Jersey barriers to set back. You certainly could do that. I mean, you want to certainly look at, you can look at any avenue like that. You want to make it attractive. You don't want to make it like a prison there, but you know, you could use Jersey barrier.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So sort of as a wrap up here, there now is a strategic plan in where there are 38 specific recommendations for action items. We know it's the intention of the center staff to look at that annually and update it to prioritize and reprioritize it as time goes on and items get removed and others get higher priorities. The key actions, especially with regard to things where the board may have a role, would be to implement the staffing and personnel recommendations, and secondly, to complete a thorough and more detailed facility needs assessment where you looked at your three typical scenarios. Renovate, you happen to have the other major building project in the works. Can that be combined and work on synergies that may be more cost effective, or a standalone facility? So it seems like the timing might be right for that with the other things that you all are considering. And with that, we'll open this up for any questions from the Commissioners.
Commissioner Cupid?
Hi, this question may be for you, Ms. Davidson. I know attrition has always been an issue with 911, at least since I've been serving. Is there a certain quality or characteristic that that tends to follow those that stay with the department? Is there a way to assess who are likely candidates to stay in your area versus others?
Typically, people who are well level-headed and can handle the stress of being screamed at all day long and can work in a confined space because they are 12-hour shifts with an hour break. I will say that we have taken action to working with our psychologist that handles public safety evaluations to do a job analysis to ensure that we're focusing on those best characteristics. We're also working currently to switch from our current vendor that does testing to a new vendor that seems to have a better track record for identifying those work characteristics, the multitasking skills that are best suited for 911. So we are working actively to identify those. We did double the number of recruiters that we have, and so that gap is starting to close. But again, there's always going to be some turnover just because of the nature of the job.
Yeah, the percentage that was provided, 25%, how reflective is that of just general trends beyond the Cobb County?
My understanding, that's close to industry standard.
Yeah, wow.
It's very difficult. This staffing crisis is rampant across the country in 911 centers. It lowered when the job market actually fell, but now that we're coming out of that recession, people are leaving the 911 centers and going to work in other fields. And generally, we're seeing 15 to 18% attrition in comm centers across the country, especially larger ones. Smaller ones with 2 or 3 people that tend to be one of the only employers in certain areas, so they tend not to lose their staff as frequently as larger centers do.
I will say also that the board recently approved an across-the-board pay rate for incoming, which we're hoping is going to have an impact. And we're also working with Human Resources and Legal to codify a lateral entry program, so hopefully we can maybe steal away from some other surrounding jurisdictions who want to come from Cobb and try to tackle it from all different angles.
Good.
And if I might add on a related thought, the attrition is typical. Theirs is not excessive, but it's still significant. You have a long hire and training process. And so the people who do like the job and do stay are looking at a lot of overtime. And there can be a burnout factor for some, and that can contribute to attrition. And the other thing is, even if you're well-intentioned and you're not burned out, you can get tired over the course of a lot of overtime, and now people are prone to make unintentional mistakes. So it manifests itself in a lot of different areas, which is why the recommendations are fairly robust on how you can ramp up, and with the knowledge that it'll take time. If you said go tomorrow, they couldn't fill all those positions in a few months. It'll take them time to ramp up to that. But it does have different tentacles within the organization when you're both short-staffed and understaffed. And I believe you said it's been almost 10 years since there were any significant staff
2010 was the last
increases.
time there was a staff
7
increase.
years. So it's been quite a while since they've seen any sort of an adjustment to try to keep pace with the population growth and the call volume growth.
What is the shift do employees work shifts? Do they?
Yes, ma'am. There's a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., a 6
So
p.m. to
12
6 a.m.,
hours.
and there's also a 12 to 12 power shift that we're hoping to expand. Currently, the 12 to 12 is call taking only, so they're only answering 911 calls. We would like to eventually expand that to 24 hours so that our dispatchers don't have to divide their attention between the 2 different tasks.
Thank you.
So in your 37 years, was your hair that color when you started?
It was jet black when I
Jet black.
started, but then it just changed immediately.
Was that after 5 years, 10
That-
years?
Yeah, that was when I got into management.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for your
it.
time.
Okay, Jim, I believe you're up next with the SPLOST update.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. County Manager. This is our regular update from all everything in the 2011 and 2016 SPLOST. You're going to hear today from Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, Transportation Facilities, Public Safety, Public Services, and Information Technology. Just a real quick look at where we are right now. With the SPLOST receipts through October, the end of October, you can see that we're actually 29 million, a little over 29 million ahead of where we were expecting to be. So that's good news. We'll hope that continues for the rest of the SPLOST. Now we're here for Scott Barfield with Facilities.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. I'm here, of course, to go over our projects that have been assigned to us. The total amount assigned to us is right at $116 million, and of course, we got it broke down in 7 different buckets here, 7 different groups. And if you look at the different groups here, we've spent to date right at $32 million. In public safety, the $417,000 represents work done replacing the animal control incinerator, some design work at the training center, police headquarters design, and of course, recently Station 1 that y'all just approved a design. Judicial, that represents work done at Magistrate Court, Tennis Park. We had the clerks and records redone, the mailroom, solicitor, DA. And we're just now fixing to start the child support recovery at Tennis Park. Senior Services, of course, is North Cobb Senior. And they have one other small amount of money for some facility upgrades. Library represents the Ackworth Kennesaw, Sewell Mill, Gritters, and some facility upgrades. Health Departments is Ackworth Health, Smyrna Health, and work recently completed at the Health Department. And facility restorations, that's actually got 6 more buckets inside of it. And that represents some security work we've done. Well, I'll go over that in just here in a second. And then the other represents the fleet, a new car shop, South Cobb Government Center, new tag office, and design we've started with the medical examiners. Go ahead. Here you have, if you were to go over today to Magistrate Court on the 3rd floor, you would see that, of course, we got paint on the walls, we got fixtures up, HVAC's done. We should have a ceiling cover up next week. If you looked at the 2nd floor, they just now started painting down there, and we're in about 2 weeks, we'll have the same way. We'll have a ceiling cover up in it as well. And that job should be complete, or will be complete, March 1st. Okay, go ahead. North Cobb Senior. They just got finished with the addition. They've closed the center at this time. So if you were to go up there today, you would see them moving into the new section, and they've just started renovating the old section. Hopefully by next week, they'll start some small programs inside the new section. Okay. If you were to go to Ackworth or Kennesaw Ackworth Health today, you would see the interior side of it's been sheetrock. They're fixing to start painting, installing ceilings, and then, of course, we'll start doing cabinet work for them. The Ackworth Health and the Smyrna Health, and the Sewell Mill Library, our cabinet shop built all the cabinets inside those. So those cabinets are built, and next week we'll start installing those at Ackworth Health. Okay. Smyrna Health. This is a picture here, just of course of the interior. It's been painted. They've installed the bathroom fixtures, flooring's going down, and that job, of course, is going to intend to open up February 1st. And the next picture is of the outside. They had to add an elevator to that facility. And again, that one just tend to open up February 1st. You go to Sewell Mill Library. The first picture here shows a children's area. Of course, they're going to have an opening, or they want to go ahead and open to the public on that December the 4th. And of course, February 1st is when they should be complete with the exterior parking lot as well. If you were to go over there today, you would see that the old library is gone and they're working on the parking lot. All right, next slide shows the actual restoration. Of course, the bucket's inside what I was talking a second ago. Inside that, you have security. Some of that represents, the money spent so far represents some work done at Magistrate Court, some touchscreen upgrades, a Gemini system replacement, and then the parking deck over there where we did add security, or more security to it. The roofs, we've did a restoration to State Court, the election skylights on the warehouse, 32 Fairground, we replaced that roof. And then, of course, it represents some other preventive maintenance work we've done as well. Equipment, we replaced the chillers at State Court, Gritter's Library's HVAC, Purchasing's HVAC, and some other small jobs as well. Exterior, y'all approved some exterior work at the superstation, waterproofing it. And there were some parking lot lights that was improved as well in the parking deck, and quite a few other small jobs. Paving, we've done some work as far as with some drainage, and then resurfaced the parking lot at the Health Department B. And then interior, we replaced some flooring at East Cobb Seniors. Of course, we've done what we here at CCB in the lobbies. DOT replaced the carpet there, and we replaced the carpet at Purchasing, and quite a few other small jobs. Next slide just shows the ongoing work, which is still going on here in the fourth quarter. And the last slide is some 2011 SPLOST dollars that's being spent revolving doors, as well as some work at the library system. And that. Thank you.
Oh.
No, just clarification. I thought Schweitzer Library was on the SPLOST list too, for renovations.
It is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. I'm going to give you an update on the technology improvement SPLOST. As you've seen before, we have about $30,079,000 in technology SPLOST dollars. Two major project categories. We have the data center, which includes some disaster recovery capability, and then business technology transformation. If you go to the next slide. This gives you the dollars we've obligated so far. There's not a major change here from what you've seen before. I'll give you an update on the projects that make those up. The data center, we really haven't started much on the data center. We're waiting on a building, as with the police headquarters, colo there probably. And then we did buy some NetApp, as you're aware, we've mentioned that before, storage, because we were running out of storage. That will move to the new data center. Next slide. Projects completed so far was that what I just mentioned, expanded data storage. Projects in progress, Unified Court Case Management System. I'll address, I won't read these to you, but we'll talk about each one individually as we go through. This gives you a breakdown of the dollars expended so far, or obligated so far, I should say, what makes up those and the feel for those. Unified Court Case Management System, current status, this is moving right along. As you're aware, we have about, it says 2 million, it's really about 2.6, 2.7 million of SPLOST dollars allocated for the Unified Court Case Management System. We're moving along with that. The vendor we hired for the RFP to actually put together the RFP for the system itself has given us a draft. They had been meeting with all of the different judicial organizations and judicial offices. They've given us a draft. We're in the process of reviewing that. Target date to issue that RFP, because it's pretty extensive. It's a draft. It's not like your normal RFP. It's very large. And we're editing that with them now. We expect to put that on the street early spring. We'll, of course, bring that back here to do.
What's the total cost of that system, though?
We won't know until we have the RFP. We did do an RFI to get a feel from some of the organizations. It ranges anywhere from, 3 or 4 million to 18 million. And so until we know until they see the RFP, I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it's somewhere in the middle, and we've got about 2.7 of it already there. Most of them, the nice thing about it, most of them did come back in the RFIs, which gave us some information, a way we had not thought about, and I had looked at is most of them came back also with a proposal that we pay it over a period of time, because it's a very extensive, very large system that'll take a long time to develop.
But does a SPOS program cover the entire cost of that system?
No, sir, we only have about 2.6 million in SPOS. The rest is not covered.
Okay, see me sometime this week.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, now business continuity plan. This one is a SPOS covered plan. This one is a project that is being coordinated with the Emergency Management Agency. Very well accepted and participated in by all of the departments. They're all in the process right now of populating the automated system. We expect to complete and review those draft plans around February, March, and do a tabletop exercise in early spring of 18 from those draft plans. This will be a biggie for us, for the county, to have a business continuity plan in place. Okay? Business intelligence dashboarding tool, this is another one that's moving along very well. We currently are getting ready to kick off with community development, finance, and tax, some of their initial dashboards with the professional services vendor that we've hired to come in and help them with building some of their initial business and analytics tools and dashboards. As I indicated, as I spoke with some of you earlier, it's such an easily friendly tool that we've got departments that are already using it actually before that professional services start, because we bought a tool that should be a tool that we could use without professional services all the time. So they've already begun using that, but we'll be kicking off some of those, and then we'll be going public with some of those dashboards, probably finance first. Okay. Web portal, another project that's going along very well. I don't know if you've noticed, as you've been out to the public website, you'll probably have seen one of the tools that comes from the new vendor that will be building our new website. It's called Voice of the Citizen, where they actually gather analytics from the current website on usage, as well as a survey out there to ask our citizens and businesses what they like or don't like about the current website. You've probably, if you've used that site very often, come across one of the random surveys that comes up. We'll use that information. We actually are kicking off with them. They've been working on that. They're gathering that data. They also met with many of the department heads and agency heads, and I believe, Chairman, they met with you as well, to kind of gather with what we do in the county and some of the important things from the department heads and agency heads they'd like to see as well. So they will be briefing us on all of that later this month and 1st of January. Expect to have the new web portal out there in July and August right now. So GIS big data, you know what this one is. We currently have all the hardware and software is in and on site. The professional services, we did bid that out. Esri did get that. They actually were the only vendor to reply, but we wanted to be fair and bid it out. Then we also had the, for the portion that was not sole source. And then they're working currently on the website updates and the data migration. So moving along with that. And this is the one Scott talked a little bit. They have a portion, and then we have a portion that's IT in the building safety and security and the management here. We did select 3 vendors. 2 of those are Cobb County, that as we bid out the other buildings in the county and as for security for cameras and building access. The new one on there is a community development that was always planned as part of it. Some of the additionals in the community development area we have there for the cameras are as a recommendation from internal audit. So, and those are the projects we've completed in that area already. Superior Court parking decks with the cameras over there, and then the purchasing new location. All right. All right.
Does that building, back one slide,
Yes, sir.
the Powder Springs, is that the one where the tax collector's office is?
Community development.
Or it's where ComDev. It's where ComDev and property management.
Powder Springs.
Oh, Powder Springs Street.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not where the tax
All right, okay.
assessor is.
Also noticed you didn't mention anything about our new agenda software that's county. Are we working on that?
We are, but that was not a SPOS project.
Oh, got it.
But we are working on it.
Okay, as long as you're working on it, I don't care.
Yes, sir, we are.
Well, thanks for
We are.
bringing it up.
Yeah, I just thought,
We
okay.
are.
well,
And we've got quite a few things. You'll notice we've got a lot we haven't kicked off. As you're aware with most of ours, they have an operating cost, so we bring them forward as we have, because we want to bring that forward, but also they have a long development time. Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is the security splossed or no?
No, ma'am. Now, in the data center bill, there is some security there. There are new firewalls, but there was nothing in the SPLOST itself for overall security.
That's what's gonna,
So, yes, sir.
I'll just have to tap you. Good afternoon, Chairman, Board of Commissioners, County Manager. I'll give you an update on the SPLOST for public safety. First is our excess collection from the 2011 SPLOST, and we have completed just about everything on that. The animal control HVAC system is one piece that we're still working on with property management to get that finalized, but that'll be the last piece of the 2011. On our current projects with the 2016 SPLOST, the first with radios, and those have all been purchased and are in place now. Only thing happening with those or anything, they are a newer model, so anytime there's a tweak that has to be done, we're having to make corrections there, but there's no issues with those. They seem to be working pretty well. Our radio towers, as you recall, we have 3 in the SPLOST, each at about $2 million. The first one is at Camp Highland, and that one is under construction, underway right now. We have one in the Bartow, Cobb, Ackworth area. We're working with Bartow on land acquisition for that one, and then the third is still to be determined which location that will go. Next is our mobile command unit. It's from Frontline Communications and should be delivered this month. As soon as it is, we'll be sure to get it up here so you can all get a peek at it. That to the left is a picture of it as it was being constructed down in Florida. And again, hopefully have that before the end of the year. It may take us a little time on the training aspect of that because there is a lot of communication and technology equipment on that to get our folks trained on. Our fire station alerting is completed. That was done last month. So I think all is working well there. Yes, ma'am.
excuse me. Is this a new mobile command center? Or
That is correct.
it's not replacing?
It will
a current?
replace, it's a replacement for the current one we have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And a big part of that, the truck is approaching 20 years old, and it was received through a grant. And a lot of the technology we had did one upgrade with it technology-wise, but the new one coming is going to be phenomenal, up speed. The next is our police headquarters. We had a police headquarters and a training center, and we are working with Eddie Cannon and the county manager at some potential property there for a police headquarters and piece of a training center. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll have some good news from those and be able to bring you some information about getting some things started there. Okay.
Quick question with respect to that.
Yes.
In light of the previous presentation, is there consideration for accommodating?
It is. I can tell you when we first started looking at numbers, cost-wise, it's going to answer your question, yes, ma'am, it is. First thing we have to look at on the needs assessment is the square footage, and we've already presented that to property management. If this thing does work out like we're hoping, we'll probably have to do a total needs assessment. I don't need to necessarily speak for Eddie, but to see how we're going to fit everything in, including potentially IS with a more secure location for all of those facilities. So, yes, ma'am. Fire Station 29, that's the Cumberland area. Anybody got any land over there, please? No. We are, it's hard to come by, and I can tell you that we've looked at a lot of different things. So I know that Commissioner Ott has helped us on a few connections, but they just keep falling apart. So we're going to keep working there and see what we can come up with. But that one's been hard to come by. But Fire Station number 1 is Mableton Parkway. That's one of our oldest stations, and the design phase of that one has started now. All right. Fire Station number 7, that's Hurt Road and Hicks Road. We are under contract now with that station sits on approximately an acre, and the property around it is approximately 5 acres. We're looking at trying to get that and build a station there, which would be nice. It's a great location. And then the airport crash truck was approved last month, or last meeting. Current projects, again, is our weather sirens. We are in process of upgrading all of our weather sirens. That has started actually 2 weeks ago and should be done by the end of the year if everything goes as well. And that would take care of that $936,000. And then 2 police evidence vehicles have been ordered for the police department. So if you look at our current projects, every one of them, I think on there we are in the process, either completed or in the process of working right now. So it's a busy time, but I'm really excited to see if we can ever get to Fire Station 29 and this police headquarters and training get moving. Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Manager. We have our update for you on the 2011 as well as the 2016 program. As you can see with the 2011 program, we've already completed 172 projects in 50 different parks. We have 95% of the money completed or spent, 2% in the design engineering phase, and then 3% with the construction underway. We're also putting together a list of parks within each commission district where there might be a few dollars left in each of those budgets to bring back to each one of the district commissioners to provide us future direction on getting to 100% on that. So we'll be getting those together and setting up meetings with each one of the district commissioners to get that totally spent. A couple of the last projects. Okay. A couple of the last projects in the 2011 SPLOST program are the 2 dam repairs, one at the Bartlett property and one at the Cato Environmental Nature Center. Those are underway. We did have to drain down the lake at the Bartlett property to do the work on the dam there, and then that's the spillway structure at Cato, and they will be finished up after the first of the year. In the 2016 program, you see the pie breakdown on our different projects totaling up to $77.5 million. And then the next one gives you a status of where we are with construction underway, completed projects, future projects, as well as design engineering. One of the things which we have found that our patrons it catches their eye as soon as they drive into the park is the paving improvements. We have hit 17 parks already. We're in the process of prioritizing others to come back before the board to get some more added in there because we do have some more paving money left. But we have got great feedback from all of our user groups as well as the general public. And it's a relatively inexpensive thing you can do just to make the folks think something new is there. The joint project between the city of Kennesaw for the splash pad up at Swift Cantrell Park was finished. They requested a pretty strict deadline of having it done prior to the summer season, and we were able to do that. We had a great contractor. Of course, Mayor Easterling, he did have to get out in the middle with the kids with his bathing suit on. He did have a coat and tie on prior to that, but he did have his swimsuit on with his coat and tie. But he got out and really enjoyed himself. But now the city will take on all operational costs for that facility. The rubberized surfaces on the walking tracks, the board approved this a couple of meetings ago with Binion Sports Surfaces. We have the quarter mile at Hurt the half mile at Mud Creek and the quarter mile at Sweetwater. The half mile at Mud Creek will be completed during the synthetic turf replacement project. In the meantime, we've diverted all of the walkers from Mud Creek over to Hurt Road as well as Sweetwater. So once Mud Creek is done, then we'll divert all the Hurt Road and Sweetwater walkers to Mud Creek, and they're really very appreciative of that. Next project is the Mountain View Community Center improvements. We've been able to do the walkway from the Art Place Mountain Views parking lot. We widened it, cleaned off some of the trees, as well as put in some LED lighting. Makes it a much safer environment for folks who need to park in that parking lot. The new roof, the new restrooms. The community association actually replaced all of the appliances in the kitchen area, so they're a good partner with us on that project. Jim Miller Park Exhibit Hall is now underway. It's one of the marquee projects in the 2016 program. They started in October. If you'll flip the next one, CP. As you can see, Building A, Building B, the old Ranger building, as well as the log cabin are now gone. And they're already putting in subsurface drainage material. So that project is done. It'll be done prior to the fair next year. Our new Parks Admin building will kick off after the first of the year. During the month of December, our staff will be relocated out of the two buildings that'll be torn down into our building, as well as the front offices at Thompson Park. And the building will be started, as well as the renovation to our small engine shop, where we do all the small engine repairs for all the county departments. The synthetic turf field conversions are underway. They have a very tight time frame, November 1st to March, to get this done. This is the picture from O.C. Hubert, where they're doing 4 fields there. This is the picture from Mud Creek, where they've already stripped the grass. They're putting the subsurface drainage in, and then the stone comes in on top of that, and then the synthetic turf. And then this is the field from the drone view at O.C. Hubert, where there's 4 being done here, then 3 at Mud Creek and 1 at Terrell Mill. A couple of the final projects that we have in the 16 program, the Ackworth Joint Project for their community center. We've been very involved in that process with them. The countywide master plan, the Recreation Board received their draft at their meeting earlier this month, and we'll be bringing that forward to you after the first of the year. Mabry Park, the construction contract was awarded, and it'll begin in January. Green Meadows Preserve, right there at the corner of Old Hamilton and Dallas Highway. The restroom parking lot will be in January, and we're also starting the review of the historic house rehabilitation. The Discovery Boulevard property, the master plan preparation is underway. We presented the first draft to the Recreation Board earlier this month, and it'll also be coming forward to you for approval, if not in January, maybe February. And then Violet F. Stout Park, the master plan preparation is underway on that. And then Leona Hall Price Park, we have received the construction bids for the restroom and the parking lot at that park, and we'll be bringing forward to you after the first of the year. Any questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, let's see what's going on with DOT. There you see our 2011 SPLOST. You had 205 projects, of which 91% of those are now complete. You can see that we've got 17 that were left, 9 are in design. 9 are in construction, and 8 are in design right now. There you see where they're scattered. They're scattered all over the county, but there you see the map of where they are. As of the end of September, we completed 180 of the 2011 SPLOST projects. Right now, those are the 8 projects that are in pre-construction or in design, and we've shown you most of those before, so we're not showing you any of those today. In construction, we're going to show you those 3 that are bolded, but those are the last of the projects that you'll see in the 2011. It's still going to take us a couple of years to finish, but we're well underway on that. With the 2016, you see we've completed 45 projects, or 22%. You see the rest of the stuff, a lot of our stuff is still in the future, but we are ahead of schedule right now for where we think we are. There are those projects, and the 65 that are in design right now. That's a lot to have in design at one point in time. And you can see those are all over the county. The 11 in construction are well underway. So far, we have completed 45 2016 SPLOST projects. These are all the projects in design. You see a lot of, of bridge projects. We've got, those are almost all bridges. A lot of drainage still going on. We'll show you a couple of them, Hicks Road and McCollum Parkway. But those are all of the 65 projects that we've got under design right now. These are the projects that are in construction phase. The one I'm most anxious about personally is the covered bridge, because that affects my daily commute. And we'll show you Cumberland Boulevard as well. I'm sorry? December 10th. It's a hard date. Let's look at some of the projects we've got. There's Cumberland, Cobb Parkway, Windy Hill Road. This is the last project in the 5 projects that made up our Windy Hill Road corridor. This is adding double left turns at every leg of the intersection. We're also doing some median work. We're also lengthening the turn lanes, because if you've been through that, you know that that's what the choke point is there. This project is a $5.2 million project, which does have state funding in it, and it's due to be completed this spring. This is the Wade Green Diverging Diamond Interchange. This is one where it's already been changed over into a diverging diamond, but we did it really early because we knew we had a lot more projects going on, and we wanted to have it changed during basically fall break for schools. So it's already been changed over. I've had people come up to me in meetings and compliment us on this project and the big difference that it's made there in the city of Kennesaw area. Interstate North Parkway still rolls along. This is one of those where we're changing the traffic pattern on the east side of 75 in the Cumberland area, actually changing the north-south axis one road over. It's getting close. It's an $8.6 million project, which is, again, scheduled for completion in the spring. This is one of those projects that's in design. Hicks Road at Concord Road. This is one that Commissioner Cupid and I drive through on a daily basis, so we're very, very familiar with it. This is the one signalized intersection where there are no current left turns. So anytime there's a left turn in any direction, it chokes it up. Originally, we looked at a roundabout at this location, but it just didn't seem to fit well, and this is really what you're going to see under construction next summer. This is one which I'm showing you the 3. This is actually going to be a roundabout. This is McCollum Parkway at Ben King. If you've been up in that area, you know it's a very confusing intersection because parts of it are very far away from each other. So we're consolidating a lot of the movements in there, and we think this roundabout is going to be great for the efficiency and safety of that intersection. This looks like it will probably be scheduled to go to construction a year from now, spring 2019. Beach Road West Side Drive. This is over at Chattahoochee Tech. What we're actually going to do is move the main through road one block over. We're going to move the signal so it goes, you'll see the signal change and West Side Drive widen. It'll actually go up to a roundabout that we'll be working on with the city of Marietta. Beach Road will then be much reduced for vehicular traffic and turned into a much more pedestrian-friendly road for the center of their campus. This should be scheduled to go to construction in spring of 2018. This is a Main Street Old Highway 41. This is a joint project with the city of Ackworth. We've actually expanded this a little bit, but it's going to be safety and operational improvements, sidewalks between Nance Road and Nolan Road, including left turn lanes. This one, we hope to start in the summer of 2018. We may go early with one intersection because of the school year. One of our completed projects, this is Little Willie O Bridge over Timber Ridge Branch. You'll actually see the closeout of this in tomorrow night's agenda. This is a great little bridge that we did. Much needed improvement, and it added the sidewalk, and you can see how well the bridge looks. Sandy Plains Road to Davis Road. This is Mountain View Elementary School. This is a new intersection and a new project in association with the school district. Just completed in July, just before school started. Been a great change out there, and we've got a lot of compliments from both the school and the traveling public. There it is, Concord Road at the Covered Bridge. If you've not been out there, this is a engineering marvel of a project. What they've done is they built 3 box frames, steel box frames, inside, because the bridge was leaning over. It was an 18% lean over. They put those in there, lifted the bridge, put it back down so that it's now straight up. They're taking the roof off and replacing the roof today. So you see a lot of stuff out there, and like I said, I can't wait for this to be open. And December 10th, not January 2018, December 10th. Yes. Here you see the Cumberland Boulevard. This is a project behind Cumberland Mall. What we're actually doing there is we're adding 1 lane northbound to be able to have the intersection right there behind the mall work different. Right now, it fires individually. It's the only one like that there is. This will greatly improve the safety and efficiency of that intersection. I'm sorry? No. It's all us. Just to show you what some of our sidewalk pedestrian improvement projects. Recently completed Piedmont Road, Discovery, Burn Hickory. We've got some under construction right now. You can see what the new sidewalk looks like. It's just a big improvement for both the pedestrian safety and really their ability to use the sidewalks and get around. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to call you like that. With this turf discussion,
yes,
is there any possibility of us looking at putting turf where that grass strip is between the sidewalk and the curb? So
could be. Absolutely.
Okay.
It will add a little bit to obviously add a little bit to the construction cost, but we absolutely can consider doing that.
Very good. Exactly, and it keeps the pedestrian area safer and wider open when it's the growing season.
So as long as, if we get the estimate for that with new projects coming on, I mean, we can't do it on existing.
Sure.
But if they're under or within the scope of the amount of on the SPOS, are you saying we can do it for new ones?
Sure.
Absolutely.
If it stays within the,
That's what I was talking about.
Right, because remember, the SPOS, I've been saying this for
new ones, but
11
where's the money
months.
coming from for the existing ones, the test 1 and test 2?
Well, if it's not built yet,
Where's that coming from?
but when these projects were proposed 3 years ago, that was 3 years ago. As we get into designing and constructing them, things change.
Right.
So as long as we don't have monumental plus-ups in the project, it's a reasonable cost associated with doing the project.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's legal.
I agree.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's still got to be within the amount proposed on the SPOS list, because we can't go over
Sure you
that
can.
amount
Sure you
until
can.
the end of this.
Sure you
We
can.
couldn't do it for the other
Well,
things that have
sidewalk
come
is
before us.
Sure you can, because it's
We
just an
Yes,
estimate.
exactly, Chairman. We have a wide bucket for sidewalks. There's no
Right.
sidewalks that are listed specifically.
with exact money, right.
Because the argument is if you had to go with a number, that means you can't have a lower figure either. The number is an estimate.
No, you can,
And as long as we come within a reasonable amount of that estimate, then it's a reasonable use of the SPOS dollars.
okay, so you're just talking about sidewalks.
I'm talking about all projects. Because you can't say that what we put on the list was an accurate number, because it was only a guess. It was a scientific guess, but you can't be held to that number.
Okay,
Help.
if we have a designated amount on a road project, like $2 million for intersection improvement at Piedmont and Sandy Plains, I'm just throwing something out there, and we wanted to use the synthetic turf for the right-of-way grass strip, if the quote for that comes in within the $2 million designated in the SPOS, we can do that.
Or a little bit over.
Absolutely. I think what we would use that for is depends on the context. For instance, on this road, the one on Atlanta Road, it's would easily be done there because it's a stretch of road that's not a residential. Different than, for instance, the sidewalk that's in front of my house. If we were putting it on, let's pick one. Gordon Combs. That's primarily in a residential area. It's got houses that come up through. Those people are really, I'm the one that mows the right of way in front of my house. So it wouldn't make sense, and I don't know that the people who lived along there would appreciate the synthetic turf. But in areas where we've got medians on arterials and that kind of stuff, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
This is one that we don't typically do, just for fun. This is one of our drainage improvements. This is Maybreeze Road at Shallowford Road, where we replaced a gutter and moved the head wall. This is really a before and after view of what the drainage project. So you can see the improvement that we made with this project. Same thing here. This is Glen Place at Lucinda Drive. You can see before, overgrown. The head wall, the pipe had failed there, so we redid the structure, redid the curb, extended the pipe and put a new head wall. You can see again a before and after what one of our drainage projects looked like. Resurfacing, you can see that when we ended up the 2011 SPLOST, we did 1,404 roads, 466 miles, 101 million. That's a huge number. Right now with the 2016, we bid out 5 contracts valued at 29.1. We're getting ready to bid out next year's projects, the 3 there. So far, we've done 312 roads, 95 miles. Yes, sir.
So what's the total number of miles we expect to pave under the current SPLOST? Do we know that yet? We don't know. I'm just asking.
Probably another 2 times that, probably another 200 miles.
Okay. Because I heard earlier somewhere in the year that we were not going to be resurfacing as many roads as we did under the earlier SPLOST.
Oh, we're not. And we're not.
We're not.
We're not.
But 200 more miles is.
300, we did 466.
We did 466 under 2011. We're going to do 312 under the current one, or that's what that's, how many miles do you plan to pave? Under
It's going to be under 300. I know that.
It's going to be under 300 miles?
Yes.
Whoa, 25, almost 30% less than the 2011 SPLOST?
Yes, well, we only have a little over 60 million in resurfacing the 2016 SPLOST. We had 101 in the 2011.
How many miles of road were done in 2005 SPLOST? Do you remember?
I'd have to go back and look.
Because there was a comparable or similar amount done then.
It's comparable to what we were doing now.
Right, so it's.
The 2011, we put a lot of money in resurfacing.
And we can also go back as tier 2 projects to do more road servicing. Okay, all right.
We could.
But my point was that we're not resurfacing many roads, and that was my concern.
No, we're not,
Okay.
and we're truly not.
Okay.
This is what you see in the 2011 SPLOST for the next quarter. Those are the projects, and Sandy Plains Road will start under construction. I-75 at Windy Hill, DDI will finally complete. We've got a little more there, and Atlanta Road sidewalks will be completed. With the 2016 SPLOST, those are all the categories of projects that you see. Bridges and culverts we've got going on. Intersections that we've got. We've also got planning studies, which you saw what the planning study looked like today for the trails. Roadways, we'll be doing those will be the ones that start over 41, Mac Dobbs, John Ward Road. We've got a lot of stuff with going on there. These are the construction starts that you'll see. A lot of drainage. There's a lot of drainage early in the SPLOST, but we do have some road and intersection projects coming up. And those are the projects that will be completed. Again, most of those are drainage with the exception of a sidewalk. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Bill, in the interest of saving some time here, you're gonna put up on the screen all the proposed, how do you plan to do this?
We have we have a couple of different objectives here, sir. We were going to briefly talk about the 5-year planning or budget planning process,
Yeah.
as well as the schedule. If you'd like, we can jump into the budget topics, which is kind of what I'm gathering.
Yeah, because I know somebody had some time issues here.
Okay.
That's a bigger concern to me right now than the 5-year plan. I don't mean to diminish the 5-year plan.
So
but
actually,
we have some action items we need to do today to take a look at.
understood.
Because of, the fact that the budget process is already in place.
So the county manager is actually going to be addressing a lot of these, so I will get it all queued up and turn it over to him then.
Good move.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Great job.
That was the best one I've given yet.
You're learning. And before I forget, Jim, are we going to get a copy of all these presentations on the SPLOST in an email? Can we get a copy for that, for what you just presented from all the departments, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We'll go ahead and jump right into addressing the 13 points that you had provided to the board at our retreat at the end of October, with kind of a response or an analysis, very brief from staff, and I promise to keep it succinct and as we move forward. The first, and I think this is not only the chairman's priority, I think it's the entire Board of Commission's priority. They've made that very clear, which is continuing support for public safety, which again, I think is the board's highest priority. We would assure the board in our response that we believe we're prepared to do that. I think one of the things that we would want to make the board aware of is it's going to be important to maintain our accreditation status for not only fire and police, but 911 as well, now that they are nationally accredited. I think it's going to be important to make sure that we keep our ISO rating at a #1 with our Fire and Emergency Services Department. As we had heard earlier through the consultant that Ms. Davidson and Director Heaton had provided to the board, we are going to need to make sure that we address the growing demand for services for all of our public safety components. Yes, sir.
The ISO rating of 1 also incorporates the water department too, right? So we need to make sure we pay attention there as well, if I understood it correctly. We have to have.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
And
no, I
Randy,
mean, public safety would also, for ISO, would also include our water department. Correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
and
I'm
Randy,
sorry, Commissioner Weatherford.
I was somewhere recently where they said that an ISO rating saves the taxpayer who owns a home somewhere between $300 and $500 a year on his insurance premium.
Not always.
Oh, not always, okay.
Matter of fact, going from a 3 to a 1 affected businesses more than it did residents.
Really? But you can put a dollar amount on that. Okay, it's a range of dollar amounts. But in fact, having an ISO 1 rating generally, is this a true statement? Generally will save you on your insurance premiums as a business and a residence, a homeowner?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can certainly provide a range. In previous talks that I have given with Chief Kreider's assistants, we usually specify somewhere between 300 and 500.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is that as we try to convince the taxpayer that we're providing the best services they get, by doing that, we in fact, in the long run, save them money. So by providing, quality 5-star service in fire safety and police and 911 and EMA, it may cost you $50 more, but you're going to save $300. I think anybody would take that bargain in a heartbeat.
Yes, sir. I think the other thing that we heard earlier this afternoon, and that is going to be critical for all of the public safety agency or the departments within public safety, is to make sure that we continue to be able to recruit and retain quality employees. I think that's in the forefront of Director Heaton's concerns, as well as Chief Register, Chief Kreider, and Ms. Davidson. So certainly be something that we remain committed to, Mr. Chairman. And then finally, I think overall, is just making sure that folks know that this is a safe place for their families to work and play and recreate. So, next slide, please. The other thing, there was, the second item was for general consideration of a hiring freeze within county staff until there could be an identification of where there might be a more effective or efficient means by privatizing. In general, there has probably been a de facto hiring freeze for the last 2.5 years. Beginning in 2016, there were a number of positions that were quote-unquote unfunded. That practice was initiated by the former county manager, Mr. Hankerson. I got to continue those courageous conversations with department heads and certain elected officials this year, but as a result of unfunding certain positions over the last 2 years, Mr. Chairman, it's provided a savings to the general fund of about $8.1 million. If the county were to consider a hiring freeze, and I'll digress for a second, one of the things that we talk about with department heads as well as the elected officials about unfunding positions is to tell us what are the most absolutely critical positions that cannot be unfunded. Of course, we take off the table public safety and the sheriff's office. Those positions are funded within the budget for budgetary purposes at certain percentages. But they are not unfunded, and that's been the board's practice since we began unfunding positions. So if it is a position that's necessary for the smooth operation of the department, let's say a department head, normally that is not a position that we would unfund. If it is something related to enforcement or safety or maintenance, normally we would be asked, and we have made decisions to not unfund positions like that. Right now, we estimate on the general fund side, setting aside our constitutional officers and elected officials, that there are approximately 10 positions that we believe via announced retirements or current vacancies could be frozen as of January 1. Of those 10 positions, if they were to be frozen effective January 1, it could provide a potential savings of about $350,000 if the board were to consider moving forward with that. Next slide, please.
One second here. All right, I just think it's important to go back to the last slide. On the second part of that, the only reason I brought that up is, first of all, just to make sure that everyone knows that I'm an honest player here, everything had to be put on the table. All right?
Correct, sir.
So the intent was never to privatize our government services. The intent was to show that we're looking at every option. And I'm convinced that if we were to compete some of our departments here, they would come out winners in this process. I'm not sure how we would do that, but I'm convinced, seeing what I've seen and what I've seen gone to other seminars on this issue, that the privatization of government never draws the savings that people think it does. And secondly, it doesn't have the efficiencies that people think it does for a lot of number of reasons. And I'm not saying that there aren't some services that shouldn't be privatized. We in fact already do that with our nonprofits. They provide services that the government should be doing, but they do it more efficiently and effectively than we do. So I think there's that privatization that's already going on. But nonetheless, do you believe that it is worth the effort to compete departments or not? I guess that's the blunt, open question I have of you.
And Chairman, I should have, during this slide, I should have pointed out that we have a number of departments right now that I think have done a real good job of trying to get out in front of privatizing certain services. Our DOT has privatized a number of their services. The water system has done the same thing as far as meter reading services, as well as a lot of their maintenance activities within drainage easements, as well as water and sewer line. Most most of the installation that the water system does, as far as new meters, new water lines and whatnot, are done all via private sector through the unit price contract arrangements that we have. We have other departments that are actually looking at not necessarily privatizing, but I know that Commissioner Ott and the Support Services Agency, specifically our Fleet Management Department, have looked at ways to offer their services to be a revenue-generating center. We are actually looking at offering our repair services to the municipalities to potentially, again, be a revenue-generating center within fleet management. We believe that the talent is there and that the need would be there to attract the business from our 6 cities. The other thing that we're looking at is potentially on the fire side. We are investigating the possibility for privatizing all of the maintenance activities for some of the larger vehicles within an existing county building that, again, would provide efficiencies, would allow us to reduce some of the positions that exist within the fire fund, and again, open the opportunity for additional revenue as well.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see that list. You know, I think if you should do the commissioners, that'd be helpful. And I think the transit service for the most part is privatized, isn't it?
That's correct, sir.
Cobb linked. So, okay. Thanks.
Okay, the third item was basically the staff was asked to look at effective January 1, a freeze on any travel that would be done by county staff or that was associated with a certification. And this would include elected officials as well. Couple things we wanted to note for the board. In our current budget document, as well as our new efforts to establish a 5-year budgeting exercise, all departments that request travel and/or training funds are normally required to provide justification to the county manager's office as well as the Board of Commissioners as to what they hope to accomplish with those training and travel funds. In 2017, fiscal year 2017, the general fund incurred about $850,000 worth of travel and training. Of those dollars, there were $314,000 that could be attributed to desired services, as was kind of identified by the board at our retreat in October. $468,000 of the travel and training fell within essential services that were defined during the retreat, and $72,000 fell to the desired services that were identified during that retreat. Would feel it noteworthy. Our biggest user as far as travel and training goes is the police department. They were almost 30% of that overall $850,000. And a lot of that is basically due to certification training that's necessary, conferences that have to be attended in order for us to keep accreditations and certifications. We also had information services, had a significant portion of that money, approximately $47,000. Again, a lot of that is for certification that cannot be offered online, such as Cisco Network certified folks, as well as becoming certified in Microsoft and some of the other virus cybersecurity issues that the IS folks need to develop. So one thing that we did discuss at the staff level, Mr. Chairman, as a potential safeguard and to give the board some additional assurances as it relates to travel and training is the agency directors and myself could review all future travel and training requests to indeed verify that it is necessary for a certification or for the maintenance of a certification as we move forward.
Well, certainly one way to get the focus is go ahead and make a cut. That always, drives people to ensure that what they're doing is that it is in fact for training and certification. And then, if that turns out that that the cut is too much and doesn't support the certifications, then we can review the issue. But if you leave the number alone, people will always find a way to fill that number. If you make a cut, then they'll find a way to refocus their emphasis on what is in fact training and certification and what's just nice to have. Now, I'm fully well aware that some associations require you to go to an annual conference as part of the certification. Yeah, we can't, that's just the way the world is shaped. But again, we have to be making sure that we're making every effort to trim the tree where it has to be trimmed, and we're focused on only using travel money, taxpayers' money, to go to things that we need to do to maintain the efficiency and the five-star quality of the county.
Yes, sir. Similar to that previous slide, Mr. Chairman, next slide, I'm sorry, there we go, is a review. We were requested about a review for existing publications, subscriptions and fees that are associated with professional associations. Our general fund, particularly in the FY 2018 budget that was recently adopted by the board, we break down memberships and subscriptions. Within memberships, there was budgeted approximately $149,000. For subscriptions, there was about $112,000 that were budgeted for such. Memberships, we've got a couple of big ticket items in that. Mainly our big ticket items in the membership are ACCG fees that we have to pay to belong to ACCG. We also have some membership fees and subscription fees associated with accreditation, such as CALIA and our fire accreditation. We do have also our NACO membership that is included in our membership fees. We've also got a number of smaller ticket membership fees, but still probably important as it relates to our county staff being able to have access to some of the latest information per industry standards. We belong to the American Association of Airport Operators, the American Planning Association, Council of Juvenile Court Judges, Council of State Court Judges, International Code Council, which is important from the building code side as well as the fire safety side, National District Attorneys Association, as well as the Solid Waste Association of North America, and the Voter Registrars Association of Georgia. Those are just some of our bigger ticket memberships. As far as subscriptions go, we have a number of monthly and annual subscriptions that comprise that $112,000 figure. A lot of it is due to software that we are running, including the people admin software that we use in the HR department, the monthly subscription for case services and case searches that the district attorney's office uses, LexisNexis, which is an online publication used by our county attorney's office, as well as all of the constitutional officers, lawyers that are employed there. And then we also have some subscriptions that the tax commissioner uses in their day-to-day operations, as well as law enforcement. Also have some smaller association subscriptions, which include the National Auto Dealers Association. I think that's used by our fleet management folks as it relates to potential sale of surplus vehicles, as well as some of the stuff that they acquire to put into cars that are being reconstructed or vehicles that are being rebuilt. We also subscribe to Nextel Communications, which is something that was used in the water system and public safety. It's a communications method that's being phased out. We also subscribe to the United States Courts Administrative Offices, Westlaw Publishing, Woods and Pool Economics, as well as Yancey Brothers. Again, that's from the procurement side for some of the heavy equipment that we normally seek through the purchasing department. Next slide, please. The Fifth item on the list that was presented, Mr. Chairman, at the retreat was a potential goal to implement new criteria for nonprofits effective January 1. I think that might still be a work in progress. We've had a first cut at it, and perhaps we'll refine that criteria at a later date. So we'll kind of leave that one open-ended
I'm
right
looking
now.
at bringing that back again in December.
Mr. Chairman, after receiving a presentation from Mr. Reynolds and the DA's office, I think that it was very timely that there was a goal expressed during the retreat about adopting measures that would kind of act diversionary for folks that were entering our criminal justice system, as opposed to incarceration from right off the start. I did. We spoke with Mr. Reynolds' office at length about this. He did want us to kind of reiterate that there were some needs that were presented to the board during the work session. Mr. Reynolds and his office still feel like those needs would need to be met. Above and beyond that, if there was additional funding that was provided to the DA's office that would allow for the diversionary measures that were discussed, such as locating certain functions within the adult detention center to where they could be immediately addressed with folks entering the system. That would certainly have a positive impact. But Mr. Reynolds thought that that would be secondary to the initial needs that were presented to the board during the work session.
Well, I think whatever we can do to keep people out of jail, I mean, literally and figuratively, we're feeding them or clothing them, and we're giving them medical care. So I think anything we can do to keep them out, he made it very clear, as did Sheriff Warren, that a lot of people are in jail because there's nowhere else to put people with these drug issues, but they shouldn't be in jail. Being in jail doesn't solve their drug problem. But while they're in jail, we're spending money on them. So I think we need to take a fresh look at this whole approach and get realistic about it, is that, as much as, drugs are an issue, our approach to addressing these drug problems is not putting them in jail. That doesn't solve anything.
No, sir. And I believe just across the nation that seems to be everybody's experience is it's better to, I think that, I will say that I think that Cobb County's doing a very good job based on the leadership of the elected officials with some of the accountability courts that we have established. So
question
that's
about it.
definitely a step in the right direction. And I think Mr. Reynolds and his office is committed to trying to continue those positive trends.
Chairman, if I may
Sure.
share, in listening to this point, I think it's important to recognize that there's a system of justice at play. And, our assessment of the budget, we're looking a lot of times at departments and looking at and the department heads, rightfully so, or elected officials are looking at their cost and their savings. But if you were to look at how all of those systems work together, by his department doing something, you can end up having significant savings in the sheriff's office. But how we're able to communicate that there's a system-wide benefit to everyone, I think, is important for the DA to understand, because it is going to be a cost for him to implement something that could have a savings to another organization within.
And what I've asked Rob to do is get together basically a working group
Okay.
of like the juvenile court system, the DA, Superior Court, because they have diversionary courts there too.
Okay.
Get them together and, okay, let's come up with a program
Okay.
that cuts across lines
Yeah.
to find out how we can work something like this that's going to be to the benefit of all, but also collaterally produces efficiencies.
Okay, I think that's a great idea.
So they're working at that right now.
Okay, excellent. And I hate to belabor this point because, there's difference of opinion in the board, but I believe, when we look at the quality of life of Cobb County and also look at our system of public safety, there are a lot of other departments that contribute to us having a more safe and enjoyable environment too, that, we may look at one department and say they're not bringing in revenue, but their actions are impacting the amount of resources that are spent in another department. And I just think as we look at Cobb County as a whole, it's easy to look at a department and make it vulnerable for what their bottom line looks like. But I think if we look at things more in a systematic, holistic way, I think we can start to see the interplay of departments and make
Yeah, that's a great point.
decisions reflecting that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Item 7, Mr. Chairman, was basically discussion about establishing a disaster relief fund to address costs associated with our incurring a severe weather issue. The board may recall at one time we had a reserve contingency that had a certain amount of money into it. We called it the Economic Development Contingency. Actually, what we'll be doing in the 2018 budget, we'll have reserves for 9%, which is by policy. And then we will have a $3 million disaster relief reserve. And those will be the two reserve accounts within the budget.
I think it's important to remember that we dodged a bullet with Irma. It went right over us, but on both sides of us, it didn't. And, we can go back to Snowmageddon when there was additional costs incurred with overtime. So I just think that if we didn't have something like this, we would have to dip in the general fund and take Rob and Peter to pay Paul to do something. I think that a one-time major disaster, tornado, would eat up this fund in a heartbeat.
Could very well do so, sir. Next slide, CP. Item 8, Mr. Chairman, was basically a consideration of resuming cost of living adjustments for certain employees or a certain employee base. Couple ways that we address this to respond to the board. We looked at this solely at providing a cost of living increase, or at least determining a cost for a cost of living increase for employees that did not receive any type of increased compensation as part of the class and pay that was implemented earlier this year. The impact on the general fund for a 1% cost of living increase for those employees that did not receive any compensation increase as part of class and pay would be roughly $2.1 million. Again, impact to the general fund for 2% would be roughly $4.4 million. I did want to call the board's attention before Bill runs up here and makes me do it. This is not included in the 2018 budget that was recently adopted by the board. So any decision that, or any direction that the board would proceed or provide would have to be done so, or would have to be funded by a fund balance appropriation. It's not included in the general fund, in the budget that was adopted by the board for 2018. Next slide. Item number 9, Mr. Chairman, was finalizing the review of our 2012 Citizens Oversight Committee and making sure that we reported the responses and the recommendations of the committee. Since 2012, we have provided a number of updates and reports to the board as to the progress of addressing the issues that were included in that report. I'm pleased to say that just about all of the recommendations that were recommendations at the control of the Board of Commissioners have been completed. For the purpose today of reporting to the board, we've kind of grouped the remainder of the recommendations into 6 subject areas: technology, communications, HR, fees, libraries, and then general internal audit items. Those items that have been addressed recently under the subject matter or the group of technology would include a number of our 5-year implementation strategies, particularly those that Ms. Stanley discussed earlier today that have been funded by SPLOST initiatives. We have also used some internal monies, operating funds approved as part of the general fund budgeting process to also make some of those technology improvements. Did want to mention that, and this was called out in the Citizens Oversight Committee report, there have been a number of back-of-the-house technological improvements, most specifically or most importantly, or with the most impact, I should say, a Mavro system that was purchased in the Business License Division of Community Development. That's basically allowed us to provide an increase in the amount of tax, business occupation taxes that we are collecting, as well as the speed with which that we collect the money and put it into the bank. So basically, in 2014, for example, it took us roughly from November to January to collect $4 million. 2 years later, after the implementation of that software, in that same amount of time, we put about $9.5 million in the bank. That's significant as far as our cash flow goes, and ultimately comes into play as to how much money Bill needs to recommend to the board that we go to the TANs market with. So it was definitely a very good improvement and something, again, recommended by the Citizens Oversight Committee that has since been completed. We've had a number of other technological improvements, online sign permitting, Court Connect, doing e-filing in civil cases for Superior and state courts, automated open records requests, e-subpoena, as well as automated payments for certain fines, such as DUIs and whatnot, that have all been technological improvements that have been made in the last couple of years, as recommended by the Citizens Oversight Committee. One of the things that the Oversight Committee recommended as far as the subject area of communications was to kind of get a better grasp on a multimedia strategy for communication and reinforce key messages. I'm pleased to report, I think that our new communications director has already kind of working on an approach or has begun to implement an approach where we kind of streamlines things across demographics using media that more of our citizens are becoming accustomed to receiving their information about, such as Facebook, live streams. We're also looking at the formation of focus groups, roundtables, and actual live panel discussions. Third subject matter, as far as the Oversight Committee report goes, were to look at some HR issues as well as possible efficiencies. There have been a lot of the Oversight Committee recommendations completed, one of which was the class and pay issue. There is still some need for improvement as it relates to compression, as well as a grade and step. We have also brought forward to the Compensation Committee for their consideration changes to the way leave is accrued and paid out. The Compensation Committee has asked for some additional information prior to making a decision and a recommendation to the board. Under fees, as the Citizens Oversight Committee had recommended, there were a number of different fees and proposals that were considered and approved by the board during the November 14th meeting. A majority of those fees are going to be implemented and effective February 1st. We did have a glitch with our online registration system that would accept new class participants for senior service fees. So we're going to be looking to defer that until April of 2018 to make sure that the new fee schedule for the classes coincides with our ability to properly register them online. During that time also, Mr. Chairman, we have committed to the board a more robust information campaign to get to the seniors and inform them of the changes that were made to the class schedules, as well as the annual membership fee. And we'll continue to move forward with that effort. And then finally, under libraries, the fifth of the six subject areas, I think the Citizens Oversight Committee had suggested that we consider a regional approach, and before closing smaller locations, perhaps consider population and needs of the community, increase some size and capacity at certain locations, increase computer facilities in some locations. The Public Services Agency has met with their liaison commissioner as part of our new budgeting process and has gotten some real good feedback from the liaison commissioner, in addition to incorporating some of the feedback that we received from the board during our retreat at the end of October. We will continue to move forward with those particular recommendations with the liaison commissioner and then the proposal that's ultimately brought to the board. There were a number of suggestions made as far as opportunities for internal audit activities by the Citizens Oversight Committee. I can tell you over the last couple of years, there have been a number of significant accomplishments by Ms. Thomas and her internal audit department, including increased safeguard of asset protection of resources. I think there was a mention earlier of a camera security system at the Powder Springs Station location. That was initiated by a suggestion by Ms. Thomas as it relates to facilities where there are large amounts of cash that are collected and transported. So again, her staff did a real good job, identified potential change in procedure there, and has done so on a countywide basis. Also have done a number of audits to better protect our resources as well as some of our assets. We believe that over the next couple years, the recommendations that have been offered by Ms. Thomas's staff as it relates to safeguarding these assets could save us approximately $2 million. There have been a number of savings realized to our wireless communication costs, as well as air card and data cost goes, that were the result of some audits that the internal audit folks provided, as well as a very thorough review of our cable franchise fee agreement and ways that we could potentially increase revenue there. Most importantly, internal audit folks have done a very good job of helping us assess our risks, and that's what they've been doing over the last year and a half. With the help of an audit from the internal audit folks, IS was able to obtain funding in 2015 that began addressing some security issues that we had in one of our largest initiatives, which was the on-base initiative. I can tell you also that the internal audit folks have done a very, very good job helping us prepare for and bid out what we think are going to be our cybersecurity needs in the future, which, based on the last couple of weeks of what Ms. Stanley and her staff had to go through with the virus that attacked us and other local governments, I think is very timely and very important. One of the final things I wanted to mention about some of the work that internal audit has done, they have done, I think, a very thorough review over the controls and the accuracy of our pension fund that really, over the last couple of years, we think has potentially, or has the potential to save us about $900,000. That would be saved by the pension fund itself. Next slide, please. Item 10, Mr. Chairman, was to accelerate the sale of excess county properties. I can tell you that as of today, we have refined a list of surplus properties. It's approximately 250 properties that staff believes could be sold. We are currently in the process of trying to assess just a startup value as to what that potential 250 what those 250 properties would be worth. Again, without an appraisal, difficult to tell, but based on tax assessor data. We're also doing due diligence to make sure that it matches up with the record that we have in Superior Court, as well as what we have from various sources, such as the DOT, property management, stormwater management. Ultimately, what we'd like to do, or what we'd recommend to the board to do, is to bundle these properties together and then go to the property commission, ask them to declare the property surplus, and then sell that bundle of properties on the open market or to a group of investors. Next slide, please. I did want to say, Mr. Chairman, we hope to be able to have that bundle concept completed by the end of January for the first meeting in February of the Property Advisory Commission. Item number 11 that was mentioned at the retreat, Mr. Chairman, was a consider reorganization of the county's Office of Economic Development. I'm pleased to report the initial reorg has been completed. Additional reorg efforts are anticipated and considered in the future, but that's probably going to be budget permitting. But the first phase has been completed. Item number 12, very timely in light of what we just received from a number of our departments that have been expending SPLOST funds. That item was to basically approve an operations and maintenance funding strategy for SPLOST projects. We have provided the board with a draft policy of best practices. It's basically a 9-point policy that would involve the SPLOST Oversight Committee, as well as requiring an impact statement for all O&M costs, regardless of how small, regardless of where they might come from, to be included in all agenda items, as well as a procedure for how district commissioners and liaison commissioners are consulted and are collaborated with as the items are brought forward for full board consideration. We will probably, with the board's permission and direction, bring that policy back for adoption after this particular work session and after the board has had a chance to make any suggestions to that policy. Next slide, thanks. And the last item, Mr. Chairman, was a general item which I think was part of the discussion that we had at the retreat about transit and some of the ways that transit might be able to be made more efficient from a cost perspective. I did want to note and let the board or make the board aware that these are all discussion items. We have made no definitive decision on any of the potential routes that have been discussed. We also would want to make sure that the board was mindful that if we were to move forward with some of the changes or altering some of the routes, that there may be impacts associated with such that could have an effect down the road and might actually have an impact either on the transit fund or the general fund. Did also want to mention that some of the discussions that we'll have about this will also be contemplated by our consultant that is currently in the very, very beginning of the data collection part of a transit plan. I can tell you the main focus for the transit plan is going to be how to increase efficiencies, both in ridership as well as what we're getting as far as the biggest bang for the buck as by route. Couple of routes that have been discussed. Route 10X, did want to mention that that is not in operation yet, would probably not come into operation until FY19. The first 3 years of that operating service or the operating costs minus passenger revenue have actually been funded by grants. So if there were a decision to either alter 10X or perhaps eliminate Route 10X, probably would need to make certain refunds to some of the state partners that participated with us to obtain those grant funds. We'd also discussed potentially eliminating some Saturday service routes, both grant-funded and non-grant funded. Did want to mention again, same kind of issue would hold true here. If some of those particular routes were changed or eliminated, there is potential money that would have to go back to the FTA for some of the things that the county has already received ahead of time in preparation for operating those particular routes. And then Sunday service has also been discussed. I did want to call the board to the board's attention that if Sunday service and the grant application is successfully, if we're successful in the pending grant application that we have, that would actually not begin until FY19 as well. There is going to be a financial impact to the county if we were awarded the grant that we are currently pursuing, which would be basically a $340,000 local match requirement that we would incur in 19, 20, and 21, fiscal years 19, 20, and 21. We would not anticipate the general fund impact until fiscal year 22 if we were successful in the Sunday service grant application. The final item I think that has been discussed as part of transit would be basically eliminating express routes. And did want to let the board know that that could potentially save us some money in vehicle revenue hours, approximately $800,000. But that's probably one of our biggest moneymakers as far as the revenue that we receive from passenger fares. So we would just suggest that the board be mindful of that impact as well. And Mr. Chairman, that completes that portion of our presentation.
If I could ask you to put some notes together for the 5-year plan and send them to the commissioners.
Very good,
all
sir.
right? And then we'll go ahead and bring that back in January for a work session.
Understood, sir.
Since I understand there isn't one next month.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
No work sessions
Will
next
that
month.
work for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure will.
All right, thank you for that information. And with that, we're adjourned.